With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Ever witnessed someone so fast on track you doubt you could ever be on their level? The mission of Advanced Motorsports is to demonstrate the speed is achievable for everyone. With the expertise of some of the best sim drivers in North America, we are set to release free content on social media and comprehensive guides on our website. For those seeking the ultimate experience, our Advanced Motorsport Institute and personalized coaching sessions are the way to go. No matter your level of experience, we invite you to follow us on our social media to learn to be fast.
It's been a frenetic start to the season, but with all eyes focused on Daytona this weekend, the drivers in the GT3 PRL doubleheader have a stop across the pond first. Welcome along to the Hockenheimring, where we get set to go racing for the third round of 2024. Delighted to have you along once again. Our junior Kanky party, as ever, alongside with Joey Tabone as we get ourselves underway. And Joey, it's been an interesting start to this campaign. That's not Ewan O'Leary. Again, just to reiterate, it is Joey Tabone alongside, but we're looking forward to tonight.
I can change my accent if you'd like.
That was more Scottish than Northern, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can't do a Ewan accent. I cannot be Ewan O'Leary, no matter how hard I try. But you're in luck because we're starting to get into the meat of the season. This is the start of a European tour that's only one race long. We get to go to Germany, we get to go back to the US to the Roval, then we go all the way to Suzuka, then we go all the way back to Europe again. It is globe-trotting all season long with a couple of new faces, some unfamiliar tracks with the Roval and Mugello, but everybody's used to Hockenheim by now. Everybody's ready, and I think we're in for a good day.
Should be quite fun indeed, and of course the season ends at Mount Panorama. That's the end of February, still a long way left to go. Let's run you down to the championship standings, where of course it's still very early in the season, so hard to necessarily take too much out of it. These, I think, have not been updated after the first round of the championship just yet, so we'll take a look at them in a few moments' time. But Joey, talk us through some of what we've seen in those first couple of rounds.
Well, the standings you saw there actually aren't that different, because in round 2, Jim Feliz was not able to double up on his win from round 1, but he's still in the championship lead. Tyler Graff has been exceptionally consistent, so he's up to 2nd in the championship. Defending champion Jeff Corollo down to 5th, though. He had a bad race 1, won in race 2. It's been a mix of fortunes all season long, and in practice right now, we've got Dale Peterson in the lead of practice, and now in the lead of qualifying. Could he be the 3rd winner in 3 races?
Here we go. These seem to be the corrected points up on screen, and just as Joey was talking his way on through. Still early stage of the championship, so hard to really read too much into this, but when you look at some of the team affiliations as well, what you note is just how close it is amongst all of them, and so Vulture Motorsports lead by just the 4 points over the SRT Green outfit. SGE Esports a further 4 points back, and then the second SRT, the Blue Camp, 1 point behind, 4 at the front. This could be wild, Joey.
Yeah, if we make your life extremely difficult, Arjuna, we could have a live team points tracker because it's going to be impossible to track this. The SRT team have spread themselves so wide. SGE, as always, they have 3 cars. Vulture Motorsports, they have 3 cars. They're separated by 9 points in the top 4. It's going to be uncalculable, and it's going to come down to the last race.
We might need to look into that when we come into those closing rounds of the championship, because let's not forget that is the one round that cannot be dropped from the championship as well. First 8 rounds, drivers can exclude one of the races. Other exclusions do come into play there. Let's talk about this track though, because yes, it's changed a lot and gone through its various guises. Not as long as it was when it first unveiled in public form for racing, but now at the Hockenheimring, it's flat. But the long sweeper into the hairpin, well, Joey, it's always going to be the site of plenty of chaos.
Yeah, there's no elevation change whatsoever, but there's so many varieties of radii in terms of corners. You've got the wide turn 1, so fast, a large curb on the inside, runoff area on the outside. It is so difficult to nail turn 1. Then the tight turn 2, the even tighter hairpin, the best passing opportunity on the track, and the arena sections, which are so difficult to nail and so easy to clip a curb just wrong or take a little bit too much momentum in and spin yourself around. It's trickier than it looks.
That's for sure. These drivers are out there on track for qualifying right now, and so they're trying to master the track and get the best lap that they can in what is an open qualifying session. That always does add a little bit of complexity into the mix to try and get some clean air, or maybe try and use the draft. But as they work themselves around, let's thank all of those that make this possible, starting with Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. RaceBox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit RaceBoxSimRacing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. Buckhager products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And last but not least, Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. The drivers had 20 minutes on the clock, and then, of course, the time permitted beyond that to get their lap underneath them. As it runs right now, it's Rob Campbell that stands on top in the Porsche 911. It's Ryan Osborne, William Fenton, Dale Peterson, and Jeff Corollo through the top 5. But the margin sees, 1 full second, splitting 25 machines.
And 3 different manufacturers in the top 3. Rob Campbell in a Porsche, Isaiah Osborne in the new Audi, and William Fenton in the slightly less new Ferrari. So things looking very, very equal up at the top. And it's good to see Rob Campbell back up on top. It's been a while since we've seen him back on such a pace. He's won so many times in GT4, and I believe a little bit in GT3 as well in the PRL. So it's the old Rob Campbell. He's back with us.
It's one of those things as well where fixed setup competition, as the name implies, solely start up to 6th position. Maybe the car suited a little bit better at this track and maybe a little bit more comfortable with that setup too. The drivers have to adapt to what they have underneath them as it sits at the time. Drivers who get to the line now will get this lap and maybe one more beyond it. The thing also with fixed setups is you start full of fuel and you're trying to burn it off as much as possible. Hypothetically, you want to try and set your fastest lap at the end of the session.
Exactly. The lightest the car will be is after you expend 19 minutes of fuel out of it and start that final lap. And also, the tires don't wear especially fast. It's only a 20-minute qualifying session. That's nowhere. That's less than half of what an endurance stint would be, a full fuel stint. So those tires are not wearing to any meaningful extent. If anything, they're getting a little bit better as they warm up. So you're going to be spending 19 minutes setting the fastest laps you can, but you better hope you've got a little bit of pace left in the tank and you can save that final lap to be the one where there's no mistakes and you finally hit that optimal lap time that you've been struggling to hit all session long.
Well, Dale Peterson will only get one more lap after this because he'll cross the line with less than 90 seconds left to go. He's got some draft into the opening corner, but runs fourth on the board. Doesn't find any improvement. That was half a second slower in the end, so he's got to try and find some speed with the clock trying to wind down. Here comes Ross Sortino to the line. He's down in 23rd.
Yeah, not where we would have expected to see. Ross Sortino won multiple times last season, just hasn't gone his way this season so far. He's up to P11. That's good stuff, but he's going to get one more time around. It was a solid run through turn one, clopping over the curbs. Buck Hamilton clopping over the curbs in the final corner as well, see if he can improve.
He's running that 57 out wide. You can flirt with the gravel, want to avoid kicking up that dirt and losing some momentum. Doesn't find any improvement though, will the number 57 machine as he starts his final attempt in the qualifying session. 30 seconds left on the board. I can tell you that Rob Campbell's tracking for just a minor improvement. Question is, does Isaiah Osborne have something in the tank? Here he comes in the Audi as he works in through the penultimate corner. Looks nice and tidy right now. Now just trying to get onto the power as early as possible.
That is a beautiful new livery. I'm still not used to seeing it all season long. The blue and the gold and the white, it's good stuff. Very wide out of the final corner there, trying to carry as much momentum as possible. It looks very good, and it is going to add up to pole position. I thought he might get an off track for how wide he went, but he was within track limits.
Now, who else has got a chance to challenge? Corollo's out there, I believe. Dale Peterson's in the final sector once again in that number 6 machine, but checkered flag is officially out as many drivers, Sully Sard included, are already down and in the box. A little bit of a sideways moment for Peterson in the number 6. He doesn't break into the 37s. It's good enough to jump him up, though, to 3rd position, but still about a quarter of a second off of that time out of Osborne.
That's still going to be pretty satisfying for Dale Peterson. I think a top 3 start for him. He's usually in the 5 to 10 range, I'd say, in qualifying. That's one of his best runs ever, and he'll be in the fight to potentially get his first win. Felix Feliz looking good as well, also using every last inch of the track limits. Unfortunately, he didn't quite use them to his advantage. That was actually 1/10 slower than he's gone at his fastest.
Here comes William Benson. Claxon goes off on pit lane. He breaks into the 37s as well. It's 41 thousandths. He's on the outside of the front row. Osborne's time will stand. Now, who still has a chance to improve? Corollo gets to the line but did not improve. Best still start is 5th.
Yeah, not going as well as it did at Daytona for Jeff Corollo. Not quite the same environment for that Porsche to excel in. Andrew Rasmussen not going to improve on this lap because he says, I'm taking an even shorter radius through the final corner. I'm going into the pits.
Don't think Isaiah Osborne will improve. And indeed, that lap that he set was such a flyer that I think that's now the session in the books. But Osborne sits on top and he will lead us to the green. He's got a great chance to run away potentially if there's chaos behind on the opening lap.
And I'm a big fan of this top 4. If you're a fan of underdogs, the front 2, not a single win in the PRL between them. Both new names this season. Rob Campbell, not a new name. He's won 13 times in the PRL, but 12 of those have been in GT4, and Dale Peterson's never won either. We could have a big day here where a new name ends up showing up defending champion Jeff Corollo.
You can still see the lines where the track used to go off into the forest and now, of course, cut down. But the karting facility inside, along with the Porsche Experience Center, see plenty of excitement for people of all motorsport ilk. We're going to see the session tick on over. The driver's now going to get the command to roll on over down to the starting grid. And behind Isaiah Osborne, they'll get ready to be unleashed for the 3rd time in 2024. 35 minutes on the clock. Let's go down trackside and check out the starting grid for the first of the 2 races here tonight. Of course, Osborne set the time in that beautiful Audi. He'll be alongside William Fenton with Rob Campbell and Dale Peterson behind. Jeff Corollo and Sully Sard make up the rest of the front 3. And of course, we'll have to blast through the starting grid because they start just before the final sector. Felix Feliz and Jason Finch, along with Tyler Graf, who sits 2nd in points, along with Andrew Trickett, make up the rest of the top 10. Only split by about half a second off pole position. Ross Sortino and then Shreyas Venkataraju, 11th and 12th. As they line up alongside one another, Rodrigo Morales, Jared Deploy, and then Evan Mackay, Colin McKenzie, and what seems to be a new livery in that number 15 round out the front 8 rows. Thurman and Hamilton line up behind them, while completing the top 20, it will be Steffi and Davis. Peter Muller, Waldo Walden, Andrew Rasmussen, and then Devin Brock through the front 12, with Brian Hoskins and Alex Wright, Kevin Maillard, and Kevin Bergquist, along with Neil Alexander and Ryan Luna, making up the rest of your top 30. Still going as we get 1.5 seconds behind pole position in terms of time. Ian Cabana, Travis Pruitt, and then Christopher Rhines, Robert Jeffries, Jordan Walker, and David Morse, who's got some work to do at the back, but Steve Bammer lines up by himself on the very final row of the starting formation. As ever, look through some of those webcams. You see Jeff Corollo with the wall of track maps above him. He sits alongside Rob Jeffries, who's got Evan Mackay, still apparently with something in the background that hasn't been taken down. Tyler Graf's got the video playing as well, while Ian Cabana sits in VR. We can forget about those other 2 drivers, Joey, at least for now.
What is behind that door, though, for Tyler Graf? Because that's not live footage. You can see Ian Cabana's parked on the grid. Tyler is... It looks like he's at Crandon or something.
That looks like dirt. Exactly. I mean, last time at Daytona, he at least gave us something that was matched up. This time, he's at least recognizing that he can't sync it up, I guess.
I mean, I wish we were at Crandon today. No offense to Hockenheim, but
wow,
GT3 fixed racing at Crandon.
That sounds like
season?
something we need to do in the All-Stars, I was going to say.
Jerome, Nick, are you listening?
Well, again, can we do it for the All-Stars? Can I convince you today?
Maybe. I love a mismatched combination.
Well, pace car off and away, and now William Benson going to have to try and judge when is right. Osborne's going to lead us to the green because pace car is off and away, and now just waiting for that jump. Officially underway here for round 3 of 2020. 14 action sees Osborne streak away into the opening corner. Benson under fire, Campbell through immediately, and now Peterson will try and join as well. Couple of cars already in drum, I can tell you. Before they even got through turn number 1, there's body parts flying everywhere. That's Alex Wright, Brian Hoskins, and maybe Kevin Maillard. Major drama for them. It's out, though, of turn 2, where it's now a long run into a major choke point. Who's going to be brave into the hairpin as Osborne continues to lead?
You've survived 2 of the toughest parts of this track already. You made it through turn 1, you made it through turn 2, and now you've got the heaviest braking zone we have on offer. Dale Peterson on the inside of Corollo. Is he going to be later on the brakes to hang on to 4th? Yes, he is. He had to do that. You've got to get every bit of track position you can because it is so hard to pass after lap 1 here.
Bit of a check up there on exit, and now we've got a car around. Kevin Bergquist as well as Buck Hamilton, Brett Thurman, all getting tangled up as they cycle out in towards the Mercedes-Benz Arena. More drama. Goodness gracious me. 3 cars off on the right-hand side of your shot, and now pirouetting back onto the rejoin. What is going on? This is crazy.
Are you sure we're not at Crandon here? This looks like beating and banging on off-road. We've destroyed about 10 cars already. It is just absolute calamity here on lap 1. The first lap jitters tend to bite pretty often, but those were jitters like I've never seen before, and we might not be done into the final sector. This is always tricky for everybody.
Don't say that. It is slippery, especially when you get through to the penultimate couple of corners where on the outside you've got a drag strip that is very, very slippery. Osborne, Campbell, Fenson, and Peterson, all probably none the wiser to what has gone on behind them. You're right indeed, by the way. It has continued. Out of the final corner, Sully Saar goes around. Another Porsche's pirouetting. I think that might actually still be Sully Saar that gets tangled up. What a ridiculous opening lap.
Arjuna's going to have to break out the carousel of entertainment just like every week. It is craziness. Andrew Rasmussen to the inside into turn 2. Well done there on Rodrigo Morales, avoiding all the chaos and drama of lap 1. That was a pretty straightforward move, but it's not done, Arjuna, because Rob Campbell has just managed to spin out a second.
I mean, look at those positions gained and lost up towards the front. Campbell drops down, maybe with a slowdown actually, because he slots back into line. But Rasmussen 13 gained, Bergquist plus 14, Luna plus 15. I mean, it just goes to show that if you stay out of trouble, you can make your way forward. And now we've got some more chaos behind, as that's a Porsche and a Ferrari. Sortino and Alexander ping-ponging off one another.
The hairpin is always a choke point at Hockenheim, but it's been more of a choke. It's been more of a choke point here than it's been just a totally choked to death point. The amount of cars we've seen turned and spun and bounced off of through there has been ridiculous. But the reason Kevin Bergquist is up 14 spots he's got some fans cheering on in the chat. His sister is in the chat rooting him on, and I think that's the lucky charm. She's got to come back every week then.
Exactly. That's the what are we calling it? Emotional blackmail to try and keep the results going. I love it, Joey. Fantastic. I mean,
I love blackmail.
I'm not even sure how we're going to pick apart everything in these replays because there are going to be so many cars involved. If you can't even get into turn 1 safely, you got a big problem.
Yeah, that was Brian Hoskins and Alex Wright, unfortunately, meeting each other on a straight. I think that may have been a case of not having a spotter really telling Alex Wright what was going on, or Brian Hoskins for that matter, because Wright keeps coming over and over and over as he was getting blocked by the Porsche ahead as well. And the 2 blank white cars, at least they're less blank white now. It'll be easier to differentiate them with about 5 body panels being taken off.
And that's how Kevin Maillard lost, well, much of the front end, and so maybe explains a little bit for him. Let's check out then the carousel of entertainment into the hairpin here, because I think it was extensive. Sortino saw plenty of the action.
Sortino behind Tyler Graff. Tyler Graff doesn't get turned, but the car directly ahead. No, that is Tyler Graff that gets turned. Tyler Graff actually had to serve a penalty on lap 1. I don't know if he instantly reached the 17x incident limit, or if he just had so much damage that he had to pit, but that's what checked everything else up. And then behind, the checkup continued. Another car gets turned around, one of the SGE Ferraris. It was just a total train through there, and everybody wanted to get into the back of each other.
And so then what happened in towards the Mercedes-Benz arena? I didn't quite figure out which car. Oh, it happens in front, so... Oof. Oh, well, so that was totally unrelated, and there was also a bit of a rejoin attempted. Let's see if we can figure this one out. Riding first with Jay Steffi as he just sees smoke in front of him.
That was good avoidance, though, from Jay. He did exactly what he needed to do when he saw smoke, got on the brakes, looked for the hole, and didn't drive into the crash. He drove where the crash was to avoid it. So well done there from Jay Steffi, but not everybody else was quite so lucky. There were cars bouncing all over the road. Right on board here. Is this going to be another lucky story? Not quite.
Well, so Peter Muller then got a big old wallop from the side. I still don't know which cars were quite mixed up. Let's see if we can figure this one out. Nope, that's just Luke Davis getting squeezed with nowhere to go. And goodness.
That is tough stuff. Luke Davis was the driver we saw getting to the outside. He almost avoided it. He was inches away from making it through. But physics had other ideas, unfortunately, and he got spun into. And there is what we saw coming out of the final corner, and that is backing up right onto the racetrack. And poor old one of the Porsches, one of the many highlighter yellow Porsches, gets involved.
I mean, Sully Sard, you've got to hold your brakes. That is rule number 1 in an incident like that. I again apologize. I can't quite figure out which bright yellow Manti liveried Porsche that is. I mean, he's got nowhere really to go, and he's going to be pretty frustrated. Devin Brock, I do believe, looking at the spotter's guide at my disposal. But now that is major, major drama. So that is, I think, just some of the replays. That's enough of the race, I think, spent looking at what was a pretty miserable opening lap. Let's focus on what's hopefully a better race after that. 2 seconds out the front as William Fenson second, Dale Peterson third. Osborne's got a nice healthy lead.
There's still cars left? What are you talking about? I didn't think there were any left.
What's that saying? Always look on the bright side of life?
There we go. And if there's 2 cars left, there's still a race. That's what Henry Ford used to say. So
is that really what it used to say?
It's probably it was probably made up and
that
said
sounds
that
like
it was
something
Henry
like
Ford.
Ken Miles would say, you know?
Yeah, but that is a quote. The second car was invented, that's when the auto race was invented.
Tyler Graff says, by the way, 6 minutes of repairs for him. So, yeah, not really a chance to recover, and that's going to probably mean this will be his drop round. So we'll see how that ends up impacting the championship as we take a look on board with defending champion Jeff Corollo.
And don't get distracted by riding on board with the virtual car. You need to look at the stuff that really matters down there. Jeff Corollo, that track map wall has only gotten denser. The 2 Catalunias, those aren't new. He had them last season. But there's at least 1 new track added to that. I don't know which one is new. I don't know if Road Atlanta was there before. Maybe Watkins Glen is new, but there's more there than there were before.
Either Watkins... No, it was Imola's the new one. I'm pretty sure, because you can tell that the spacing of the other ones was quite quite well thought out, and that one seems a little bit, you know...
I don't know what else he could fit there in that little blank spot.
On the left of it now. Yeah.
Next to Road America and next to Imola. I don't even know what you could fit there. You could fit like the Chili Bowl in there maybe. That's the only thing that's small enough.
It's not a bad idea. I've just been informed that there's more chaos. Oh, Christopher Rhines, as well as Brett Thurman.
Teammates, no.
Oh, teammates. What is in the air? There must be something today. What date is it? It's the 16th of January on a Tuesday. Can someone Google that?
It's Hawk o'clock.
Can someone Google that and figure out if something's wrong?
It's all gone wrong at Hawk o'clock. That's not a time you want to experience. I don't know if it's Halloween or if it's a full moon or what, but it is just it's just craziness. And there was trouble between the SRT teammates in the LMP2 GTP series last night as well, I believe. So
was there?
It's not been a great night for them. Let's see what happened between the two of them. Was it just them two, or was there a middling party in the center that got the teammates two together? It's two SRT cars together alone now. There's no car between them. It may have been teammate on teammate, and there it is.
Oh, goodness. Evan Mackay was the other Porsche in front, by the way, who was totally not involved in that situation. But, wow. 37 starters. How many are left within 10 seconds of the leader? 8. Within, 10 minutes of the start of the race? That is... one of the wildest starts we've seen. William Fenson's been able to bring back that lead, by the way, to his Raya Osborne. So, as much as Dale Peterson's keeping him close as well, it's an Audi leading from a Ferrari, then an Audi, and then a sea of Porsches behind. It's good to see a bit of a change-up and mix-up in the manufacturers once again.
It is, but it's going to be very hard to bring that gap down. A 2-second gap is almost as big as we usually see in this series at this stage of the race. Raya has been very, very fast. He was on pole for a reason, and he's being very, very consistent. A little bit slower that lap than his fastest, but still riding in that 138.6 range. Very, very close to his best, and keeping that gap at precisely 2 seconds. As long as he can keep that pace all race long, even if William Fenson takes these little bites out of that lead, it's not even going to be mathematically enough to catch him at the end of the race. Raya Osborne's doing everything he needs to do right now.
This is not one of those races where a fuel save is going to be possible, so see how much fuel saving ends up making a difference. Peterson with a little bit of a different line there in the Audi. Not sure if that was in defensive reaction or maybe just the preferred line to stay off the curb, and maybe some bumps on the left-hand side of the track. Here we go. We're going to see some action down in towards the hairpin. This is for 18th position. They are almost now 30 seconds off of your leader. Devin Brock has lost the front end of his Porsche. That looks very, very peculiar. Jared Deploy behind now. Colin McKenzie as Evan Mackay goes missing for a second.
And that was actually looking pretty good for Jared Deploy for a couple of moments. He was to the inside of Colin McKenzie down that curved back straight, but he just didn't have the straight line speed to make anything happen. Wasn't even alongside to even think about being later on the brakes, and making that move was a little bit too late in the brakes there into the first stadium section. And Evan Mackay says, "Thank you very much. Open the door, I'll go through, and how about you throw it off the road behind me as well? Give me even more of a buffer." Seems
like there was oil on the track, because at least one other car went off as well. Now
there is a huge oil bottle on the pit building. That may be the problem.
It's leaked all the way on the other side of the final sector of the track. Yeah, Mackay's having those brief internet issues, but nothing wrong with his Zoom connection to us. Oh, that's Jared Deploy spun around. Unfortunately, not. Sandwiched and beached on those curbs and able to spin it around and get it back out of there. But Evan Mackay's still got a stocking up behind him. It's a bit late in the year for that, isn't it?
Well, was it a Christmas stocking or was it like a themed stocking?
Isn't a stocking inherently just Christmas themed?
Probably, but it looked like there was something thematic on it. I don't know if it was like Spider-Man.
Oh, I think it was Spider-Man. Yes.
It looked like it was. It was something relevant, but Corollo just had a terrible exit out of the hairpin there. Rob Campbell could have had an opportunity to peek to the inside, but he says that's not really going to be worth it. He didn't think he was going to be able to actually make the move into the braking zone here, and he just gave his buddy Jeff Corollo a little bit of a bump draft to stay with him.
Saw the rear end step out. Corollo a little bit too aggressive on the right foot, but able to hold on to it. Just trying to check out if there are many drivers who have rejoined. I see Tyler Graf is back out there after his damage repairs completed. Alex Wright rejoined, Peter Moller, Ross Ortino, Kevin Maillard, Rob Jeffries as well. So a handful of drivers just trying to make sure that if anyone else gets tangled up, they can scoop up some points and take full advantage of that. Jump back in the pack though, where you see Devin Brock continuing rather to feel the pressure just in front. We can ride on board in virtual reality with Ian Cabana in that Crikey Esports car.
This is a little bit of vertigo, though. We've got Ian looking out front, and then we've got the camera looking out back. I don't know where to look. I'm looking in two different directions here.
It's pretty synced up, isn't it? It's not bad.
Although we're living in a weird reality because his rear view camera shows that there's fans, and his front view camera shows that there's no fans. Which one's real? Is Ian a vampire?
The one that's able to show the fans. Because everyone's enjoying what we're seeing right now. That it's calmed down. His heart rate says 91, though. That can't be accurate.
Nah, he's a calm and collected guy, Ian Cabana. He races for Crikey Esports, so he's used to, a little bit of trouble, but he's not saying Crikey. He's not saying any of that. He's ready. He's fit, and he's got no fans to be embarrassed in front of. So I think that's all a ticket to a consistent heart rate.
That's the trick on iRacing if you want to get even better. I'm putting that on social media. You know how they say if you want to perform in front of people in a stadium or in a concert, you should imagine them with their clothes off? Well, now in iRacing, just turn the audience off. It's even easier.
Yeah. Just imagine them all dead. Imagine a mass extinction of the audience, and that'll really lighten the mood.
Yes. What style of mass extinction are we talking about? Are we talking Squid Game level, where everyone's forced to play Squid Games?
Maybe. That sounds like the most fun way to do a mass execution.
Well, the reason I half bring that up is if you enjoyed Squid Game, there's also a very good show on Netflix called Alice in Wonderland, which is, we'll get back to that.
No.
Andrew Rasmussen was having a great day, had more than double-digit gains, spins off at the corner that Sebastian Vettel spun off all those years ago in.
I mean, that's a good driver to follow into a mistake, but I think that's like the honeycomb cookie. Andrew Rasmussen couldn't quite bite the star out cleanly, so he's been blapped.
What type of cookies are we talking about?
I haven't watched more than 5 minutes of Squid Game. That's the only reference that I know.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize you. I should have realized with you as a reference. Let's take a look at the replay, though.
Is it going to be an exact copy of the Sebastian Vettel moment? Not quite. Wasn't quite as straight into the wall, but still too much speed into the corner. It's slightly banked through there, so if you're a little bit too high, moving the car down, it'll set off the shift of weight, and it'll loop it around like that. And Andrew Rasmussen didn't have anywhere to go once that car started spinning.
See, some drivers are down on pit lane as that's Ian Cabana, who we were just checking out the perspective from VR. Down on the lane with 20 minutes to go. Relatively early stop, but maybe just trying to find some clean air and get out of trouble relative to some of the other drivers that they find themselves near. See that gap at the front's been re-established as Raya Osborne just fending off the advances from William Fenton, at least for now. Peterson's closed up in his Audi. You can see Campbell's putting the pressure on too. I don't know how much fuel saving necessarily is going on here.
I don't know if there's much fuel saving. I think it's just William Fenton going a little bit balloon mode. He's been very fast at times. He got the gap down to his Raya Osborne, down to about 1.2 seconds only a couple laps ago. And in the space of one lap, he's lost almost all of that, and he's feeling the ultimate pressure with Dale Peterson behind him. He just can't really reach the heights of consistency that the leader can reach, and that's not really doing him very well. He can be faster on one single lap, but if you can't do that for an entire race distance, you're going to be out of luck.
He's going to get a good run out of here. We're about halfway through this race in terms of the estimated laps. Rasmussen next onto the lane, so clearly they're reaching a point where they think it's a decent idea for some drivers to get down onto the lane for a bit of a half reset at this point in the race. That's Peterson having a bit of an inside look because Corollo's had a huge lunge. Big contact as well with Fenton. Ferrari gets bullied wide. It's a 2-for-1 special, but that's going to be investigated without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I think Jeff definitely intended to be later on the brakes there, but I think he even outbraked himself and ended up in the side of William. He was Fenton, literally using him as a wall. And he's probably not going to be too happy with how that worked out. I think he's probably a little bit... he definitely feels a little bit bad for William Fenton right now, but he's not going to let him by. He's got the position, and all he can do now is run away.
And William Fenton, fortunately, doesn't seem to have any steering damage as a result. Joey, let's take a look on board with the perspective from Corollo.
He was trying to outbrake Peterson, and he succeeded, but he outbraked himself and William Fenton at that matter, too. And did end up using Fenton as a wall there. He was not making that corner if Fenton wasn't there. Just a mistake, a critical error there from a driver who doesn't often make mistakes. He was so consistent last season, made no drama whatsoever, but even Jeff Corollo can get bitten by that tight hairpin being a little bit too late in the brakes.
And well, there are admins and race control decisions in the Precision Racing League, but they're all post-race, so lead driver Stuart Arnaud Genet will take a look at that in the next couple of days, and penalty points maybe go the way of the number 97 machine, both coming away with relatively minor impacts as a result, so they will be glad that the iRacing gods have smiled on them. But the takers down onto pit road continue. This time it's going to be Devin Brock, and tell you what, he has taken that Porsche with a significant lack of front end quite far as he struggles to find his way into the box.
Yeah, I don't think his virtual crew chief did a very good job of telling him when his box was coming up, but eventually he did get there. And it doesn't seem like it's really that bad to be driving that Porsche without a front end. Maybe it's a little bit worse aerodynamically. It is kind of a flat wall instead of the specifically designed curvaceous front of that Porsche 911, but it's good to see him still out there trying to finish the race. And it's good to see William Fenson back to the back of Jeff Corollo. He's been able to make up that gap again. He doesn't have any damage that's slowing him down. So if Fenson does get close enough to Corollo, I think he's going to get just as aggressive and repay the favor the first opportunity he gets.
See how the draft works as well, of course. The impact turned down by iRacing over, what was it, a couple of builds ago now, and drivers having to make do with that. Does seem like there's some damage on the left side as one driver seems to be into pit lane, or is that there's a car around? Peterson's had an issue.
The final sector bites for the first time in a little while. I don't know if that was totally on his own or if maybe Campbell or Feliz got involved. We'll have to wait and see, but that is absolutely heartbreaking. Here it is, Dale Peterson into the penultimate corner. Rob Campbell behind him. Gets on the brakes in the middle of the corner. I think he was struggling a little bit with oversteer and had to get on the brakes to save it. Campbell, only inches behind him, didn't have time to react, gets into the back of him, and that is such an awkward place to lose it. And Peterson's eventually just going to say, I'm going to minimize my losses and bring it down pit lane.
And then more drama because Felix Feliz has a look up the inside, and now squeezed by Rob Campbell onto the sausage curb, and then spins around and pirouettes. Is he going to get away without clipping the extension of the wall? Just about, but let's take one more look at this one. Big moments there for the Lunatic Racing car.
That is just the pendulum of it all. Campbell definitely did turn in very early. There was barely a car length there on the inside for Feliz and that little bit of contact. The second that rear end starts to overtake the front end, the weight at the rear end is just so much greater that there's nothing you can do to stop that pendulum momentum other than just slamming on the brakes instantly, and you're losing the position either way that way.
Bit of a dead heat into the hairpin between McKenzie and Mackay, but the Audi holds on. Bit of damage, but maybe a bit of damage, but that could also just be the way the car looks with its angled front end and the paint on top of it. Now they're 9 seconds behind Ryan Luna, but still in 13th position as from the race lead. Here comes, interestingly, most of the field. Osborne, Corollo, Fenson, but not Rob Campbell, who will stay out for an additional lap as other drivers get ready to make what is their crucial trip down the lane.
A fuel gamble for Rob Campbell. That'll be some good stuff. Maybe he can shorten that stop just a little bit. Because if you do go that one lap longer, you can put a little bit less fuel in the tank. In a race this short, when you leave that short of a stint at the end, it doesn't necessarily even out mathematically. It's 13 seconds for Osborne, 13 for Fenson, 13 for everybody else. But if Campbell can be maybe about 12 seconds, he could have third or even second by the end of this pit cycle.
It was 11.7 for Corollo, so he was able to get a bit of a shorter stop. We'll see if he's able to latch onto the back of the draft of Osborne, or if it is going to be all about the Rob Campbell show in terms of playing that strategy gambit. Sortino's now, I'm being told, off the track, so it has not been an easy start to the season for him. Continues to be a bit of a struggle. Let's go back in time and take a look at the replay for his number 20 machine.
Oh, it's good that we checked in right at that moment, because that tells us all we need to know. He was already out of sorts, through the middle of the corner, and I guess we can see some context here as well if we need it.
Oh, he'd already spun it around before he'd even got the car turned right. Not sure what was going on.
That was almost an incredible drift, Arjuna, but the tiniest clip of the curb set it off just that little bit too much that looped it around. If that was all asphalt, he would have been fine. He would have had an excellent save, but those pesky curbs got him.
I don't think that was necessarily what he wanted, though. So here comes Campbell, though, onto pit lane, and he's going to be pushing as well because it is a pretty short trip already into the final sector. There is your race leader, Azariah Osborne.
I don't know if it's going to be a race with Osborne, although if Campbell can have a pretty short stop, it could be a little bit of an underdog move into the lead of this race. Campbell was 5th in line for the extent of that first stint, so he might have been able to save a little bit of fuel, braking a little bit earlier, but all the fuel in the world can't really keep him ahead of Azariah Osborne. Azariah already through. He's going to have about a 6 or 7 second lead as Campbell's going to fall all the way down. I think out of the top 5, Jason Finch is coming
With a head of steam, but on the outside into the braking zone of turn 2. You see Campbell blend left and cut the momentum off, but no drafts in front. He's going to be instantly under pressure from behind as they filter back onto the back straightaway. So it's 2 seconds between Osborne and Corollo, just over 2 seconds, with under 2 seconds between Fenton and Corollo on those podium spots. With 11 minutes to go, probably works out at close to 7 laps or so, depending on how quick these drivers are going to get up to speed, how little they're going to fight. Get the sense that those out front are now just going to be pushing and hoping that someone makes a mistake.
And the one critical name you don't see there in the top 5, Dale Peterson was the 5th car in the top 5 before that pit cycle, but you can see now all that time he lost with that half spin before coming into the pits, he's lost 20 seconds in the meantime, and now he's just trying to minimize his losses. He should be able to get by Kevin Berquist. He's been faster than him all day, but other than that, if he gets by Waldo, if he gets by Jay Steffi, top 10 might be possible in the dying 10 minutes, but that's not going to be what Dale Peterson wanted even 5 minutes ago.
No, absolutely not. Small mistakes like that, he'll be slightly kicking himself, but can take at least a bit of hope from the speed that he had. So Kevin Maillard, he's hear the klaxon go off. He is the next driver down to the lane. 37 starters. We still have about 33 running, despite all the calamity on what was a pretty ridiculous opening lap. So glad to see the drivers, once they got the damage repaired, went out to try and recover just a little bit. Looking at the front of the livery there for the Lunatic Racing car, that's a nice way of being able to put some sponsorship on. That says what? SK Lounge Motorsports?
SK Lounge Motorsports. It's written in crayon, it looks like. I also would have said Sklounge, but I don't know if that's what it is or if it is SK Lounge. I assume it's SK Lounge, but I do like the word Sklounge. Now,
I can't find anything on social media saying SK Lounge Motorsport. I also can't find anything with Sklounge Motorsport, so
I'm on hashtag Sklounge right now. Let's see what comes up. There's a lot of people. There's
well, the good thing that I will say as well is that the Lunatic Racing bunch have made their liveries quite simple, but at least they've tried to differentiate them. This is Colin McKenzie, and I believe because Alex Wright has got him back out there and is circulating once again, we can also take a look at that car. Not just a different machine in terms of Audi versus Ferrari, but also a different color, slightly.
Yeah, it's bluer, pinker, and a couple of differences. Purpler for Alex Wright. I like it. They listened to what we said in race 1 and they changed it up. I have found SK Lounge, by the way. It's not Rob Campbell's SK Lounge. It is the SK Car Lounge in Diamond Hills, Lumbini Avenue, Gachibowli, Hyderabad, Telangana, India.
You managed to find something in my hometown, didn't you? Well, send me a link to this one. Now I'm curious. You're
going to go to the SK. You can't go to the Formula E race anymore, so you're going to have to go to the SK Car Lounge.
Oh, I know. Don't get me started. Politics in India. That's a fun one for motorsport. Anyway, Ian Cabana holding on for the time being with Buck Hamilton behind. Now I've got to know, is that really what the SK Lounge? Probably not.
Oh, Ian Cabana, rallycross mode. Crikey indeed there. I don't think this is the same thing, though. It appears to be a car dealership next to a pizza restaurant.
Well, they clearly come highly recommended. Oh no, Dale Peterson's back on pit lane.
No, it was going so well. It was one of Dale Peterson's best races ever. He was a Hockenheim expert here, and it has come undone for him. It's not a penalty because he stopped in the box, so there's got to be a little bit more damage. Let's see, was it through the pesky final corner? Yes, it was. Looped it around before the corner even started and couldn't save it. And there he went. Didn't actually hit anything, but I think he said it's too much time to circle this back round and let everybody by. He just towed it back to the pits.
In MMA, we have an expression, It was going so great until it wasn't. That's kind of how it was for Dale Peterson today. Once the train started going downhill, it was hard to arrest the momentum. Neil Alexander passed by Andrew Rasmussen, who slides deep under the brakes, and Chris Cott attempted from Alexander in the 27, but Audi gets a pretty decent run. If it can hold on the outside of the fast right-hander, it'll have the inside through the Mercedes-Benz arena. It's a battle for 13th position. Rasmussen finally gets back on through. Officially 10 positions gained today.
This entire track is basically just switchback city. You switch it back in one corner, you're on the inside one, you're on the outside the next. If you're able to stick it and pull off the switchback in every corner, you can keep a battle going for very long. But Alexander not able to keep the momentum up there. Riding on board now with Jason Finch. He has been very frustrated because he's just been seeing Rob Campbell's rear end for the last 5 minutes straight. Hasn't been able to make up any ground. Hasn't been losing any ground either, but that's just one of the frustrating things of GT3 racing. You can be the same speed as somebody else, but the draft is so diminished and the straights here just aren't quite long enough that you're basically just sitting in the same place the whole time. You can't really do anything or get closer.
Now, of course, Joey, we were at Daytona last week. We got the Daytona 24 coming up this week. It's hard to know how much practice some of these drivers have for this race as opposed to the focus they have on Daytona. Maybe that led to some of the chaos on the first lap, but at this point in the race, 6 minutes or so left to go, surely they've settled in a little bit more. Now that Jason Finch has closed out that margin, maybe at this point as well, he's understanding where he wants to try and make moves happen.
And there are only a few places where you can make kind of an unprompted move happen. If you are side by side with another driver, as I mentioned, you can make a move basically anywhere on this track if you're side by side. But if you're just going to go for a dive, if you want to be later on the brakes, you can basically only do that into turn 2 and into turn 5 at the hairpin and into the Mercedes arena, into the stadium section as well. Other than that, you're out of luck. You're just riding in line. Finch has done a good job of doing that. He's been equal on pace, even through the final sector, where it does get very tricky with the banking at Sachs curve, with the flatness of this final corner. But he's got to hope for a good exit out of turns 2, 3, and 4, I think, to go for a move into the hairpin next time.
They're both in the same car, both have the same setup. They can't complain about downforce configurations. All they can do is potentially just try and urge a little bit more out of it on exit. You also need to try and time your run out of here. Very wide for Campbell. That's going to give the chance for Finch to close as Campbell still just maximizes on corner exit. Finch is already alongside and blows on past before they even get through the curb on the left-hand side of the Parabolica. It will give Campbell a chance to tuck back into the draft and throw a lunge around the outside. Finch needs to make sure he parks it on the apex, holds that door firmly shut, and as Campbell bobbles over the inside curb, that door never opened. Finch grabs fourth.
That was textbook stuff from Finch. Did exactly what Arjuna said, parked it on the apex, made sure that Campbell wasn't able to pull the switch back. Campbell tried it, but he had to get on the brakes a little bit, scupper his momentum to not get into the back of Jason, and that unsettled the rear end of the car a little bit. Couldn't get back on the throttle as fast as he wanted to, and it all came undone a couple corners before that with just that little moment of getting too wide in turn 2. It screwed him entirely onto the back straight. You can't afford to make a single mistake when you've got somebody following that closely, and now Jason Finch is in the same position. He can't make a single mistake or else Rob Campbell's going to be right there getting back by him.
You can see traffic being a bit of a factor in some ways as that's this Raya Osborne that slips on past Rob Jeffries. But that's something that the leaders are now having to navigate their way on through. Hopefully not too much time going to be lost by anyone in particular. What's happened to the 22 of Jared Deploy? Oh no, it's a big one into the wall.
That's like his 5th spin, I think, in this race. I think he's going to be ready to deploy out of Hockenheim. I think he's going to be ready to leave.
That wasn't bad. Although deploy was it was a bit
He's going to get deployed to the Roval next.
Oh yeah, I mean, which version of the Roval are we running? Do we know? Are we doing the fast chicane or the slow chicane?
I assume it's the slow chicane, just because it just said Roval and not Roval 2018. I agree that is boo, because I love seeing cars and crazy drivers run side by side through that fast chicane, because it guaranteed ends in a hellacious impact in the tire barriers.
Oh, speaking of, well, not hellacious, but impacts, Finch is around and now pointed in the wrong direction, trying to get it spun around. If he's got traction control off mapped, it would have helped, but I think eventually he's able to loop it around, but now down to 8th.
Nobody behind him in reasonable touching distance, though. He is lucky in that way. Did find a clean gap. Rodrigo Morales about 2 seconds back, but here's what happened. Riding on board with Rob Campbell behind, there wasn't even a little bit of contact. There was contact afterwards, but what set that off was Finch clipping the curb, getting a little bit clunka with the traction control. He was already losing the rear end, and then Rob Campbell ended up making him lose the rear end a little bit more and turning him all the way around. But he was already in big trouble. I think he would have lost that spot either way, no matter what happened to him.
Yeah, I think that incident was happening. The question just was going to be, could he avoid being more than 90 degrees pointed to that right-hand side? It's not really going to matter now. Moot point. Osborne onto what will be the penultimate lap of this race, because with just over 60 seconds left to go, he's heading off onto the back straightaway with a 3-second advantage. Been a quiet one at the front, let's be honest, Joey. We spent most of the first 10 minutes talking about the first couple of laps of the race, and after that, well, most of the action's still been further back in the field.
Yeah, it's been a quiet day for Israel, but that's kind of what he needed. He came into this series for the first time this season, had strong races in race 1 and 2, but didn't get that win under his belt. But he was on pole here pretty dominantly, has dominated this race, and that'll be the best way to get your first win and maybe start a championship challenge for Israel now that he's got that first win duck broken.
Charlotte next is going to be unpredictable. Not sure how much experience many drivers have there, especially in GT3 machines. I know I've done a decent number of laps there in a NASCAR stock car, but never in a car like this, to be fair. And so adapting to that challenge might be one that's going to be quite interesting to see. After that, of course, we're over to Suzuka, so totally different. And then Mugello, new track once again. That will be quite an intriguing one to see. Lots of undulation and blind corners to deal with in these relatively lumbering GT3 cars as opposed to an open wheel machine, but it's going to actually be the final lap of the race. Here comes Osborne to the line. He wins in the Precision Racing League for the first time in a GT3 car. Jeff Corollo, the defending champion, finishes behind, and then William Fenson will grab third. Rob Campbell, Venkataraju and Trickett will round out the top 6 as they stand. I thought we were getting one more lap there.
So did I, but it was a race against the clock, and the clock won, unfortunately. But what a day for some of those underdogs there. Shreyas Venkataraju up 7 spots from the start of this race. Kevin Bergquist didn't quite make the top 10, but he was up 12 spots. No, he was up 16 spots, rather. Waldo Walden was up 11 spots. Great stuff from everybody in this race who managed to survive all that trouble early on.
Well, as we see the rest of the drivers come towards the end of this race, couple of drivers in somewhat close battles. There's Brett Thurman just in front of Ian Cabana. Behind them, Devin Brock still with no front end on that Porsche, albeit maybe with a bit more of the damage repaired. Finishes in front of Ryan Luna. One crazy start here. I hope the GT3 Sprint Series drivers, Joey, were taking a look at that and thinking, you know what, let's get through the opening lap a little bit cleaner.
I think they're probably going to be saying the exact opposite thing. They're going to be saying, you know what, they had trouble and drama in race 1. You had Jeff Corollo going for the dives and the hairpin. I think they're going to go even more NASCAR style road course crazy in preparation for the Roval next week. They'll start getting the beating and banging out of the way here.
Well, all drivers are across the line. Let's run you down to your race results. And so then we can jump you down in towards some post-race coverage as well. It will be Azariah Osborne, 3 and a bit seconds clear of Corollo, with William Fenton, Rob Campbell and Shreyas Venkataraju rounding out your top 5. Trickett, Felice, Finch, Morales and Steffi make up the rest of the top 10, with 11th the way of Waldo Walden, 12th for Kevin Bergquist with the fan club watching along, and then Andrew Rasmussen, Neil Alexander, Evan Mackay, Colin McKenzie, Buck Hamilton, Brett Thurman and Ian Cabana, along with Devin Brock, make up the rest of the top 20. Still on the leading lap for Ryan Luna, Travis Pruitt, David Morse, Jordan Walker, Jared Deploy, and then Steve Bammer. 1 lap down for only Rob Jeffries and Dale Peterson, unfortunately, with Kevin Maillard and Tyler Graf, 2 drivers recovering from the early drama to at least get something onto the board, with Peter Moller, Alex Wright, Ross Sortino also trying to do the same. Christopher Ryan, Sully Sard, Brian Hoskins, and Luke Davis round out the rest of the used car lot. Plenty of that for the drivers to be dealing with today. Good that the damage builds are very much virtual as well. Fastest lap went the way of Jeff Corollo, and that was on the 3rd lap of the race, so goes to show just how important it was for drivers to be pushing, but pushing the hardest, pushing the fastest was Isaiah Osborne. He's standing by with Joey Tabone.
Indeed he is, Isaiah Osborne, and only the third time of asking in the Precision Racing League. You're the winner, and in dominant fashion. How were you so locked into Hockenheim today?
Man, first things I got to give thanks to my nephew. We ran simulations on this race all day today, and yeah, we kind of came up with the strategy that if I can keep everyone, you know, at least out of the draft, I should be able to, you know, come out in first. So after practicing all day today, this is the result of our labor.
So we did a little bit of stalking, a little bit of research before the season. I saw that you've been very successful in remote control racing. Have you taken any of that to the sim racing world?
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially like when it comes to the nerves and consistency, for sure. Like my manager, when I raced remote controlled, he told me that I was probably one of his most consistent drivers out there. So yeah, I was able to bring that here for sure.
Well, Isaiah, you've won in RC remote control. Now you've won an RC road course. Congrats, and we will see you again next week.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Isaiah Osborne, and his nephew for that matter. I'll ask him for his name next week. They were victorious together today, Arjuna.
They were indeed, and now we can make our way down to Jeff Corollo, defending champion, standing by also with Joey Tabone.
Jeff Corollo's back as well, but Jeff, I've got to talk to you about one of the defining moments, the late dive, getting by Peterson, getting by Fenson, but also a little bit of contact made. Talk us through that from your perspective.
So I would love to say that was skill, but that was purely an accident. I was meaning to go side by side with Dale at the absolute worst, but by the time I realized my car is not stopping, I was already into the middle of the corner. I do want to apologize to those two. I really didn't mean to make contact there. I did want to get around it, but not that way, to be completely fair.
So it's been kind of an up and down season so far. Week 1 didn't go your way. Win at Daytona, second here today. How are you feeling championship-wise with 6 races to go? How's the championship defense feeling?
I mean, I'm doing the best I can. I'm not complaining, and obviously it's not that bad of a showing. As I said before, let's forget Aragon even happened. So I'm moving forward. I think it's possible. Is it possible? Yeah. Am I aiming for it? Yeah. Still fast guys out there, so still got to watch my back and keep my head forward.
I agree that we should forget Aragon exists, but next week specifically, it is the Charlotte Roval. Big curbs, designed for stock car racing. How do you feel about throwing a GT3 car around there?
Not comfortable. I'll be honest, I genuinely dislike that track. I am going to put work in, I am going to practice it and do what I can, the best I can. Hopefully just try to match my last Roval experience being Daytona. Get at least hopefully top 5, if not a podium. It's going to be a challenge. Again, never been that strong there in any kind of car, so...
Well, if you win next week, we're going to have to start calling you Jeff Corollo. Congrats on the second today, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. I want to thank you guys, my team, of course, my family, my girlfriend, and my sponsor, GTR Simulators. And I do want to say, hey, you're doing a good job, bud.
Look at that. Company man right there. Jeff Corollo or Jeff Corollo. I don't think we can call him Jeff Corollo just yet. He's got to win next week first.
Yes, and I think I don't really know what to expect when we make our way on over to the Roval, mainly because I'll also be quite honest in saying, do we know what weather conditions we're dealing with? Night, afternoon? Makes a difference.
I hope it's like current Charlotte weather conditions, which is like 15 degrees and
Snowy.
snowing.
Okay, ooh, you know, that... Joey, you are a genius sometimes, you know?
Where everybody's always begging iRacing for rain, and it's coming
Where's the
soon,
snow
but
model, right?
Snow, exactly.
Yeah,
Should be coming even sooner.
You read my mind there. What we will do, though, is look forward to that next week by taking a look at some of those track pictures of that Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. A heartburn turn, maybe hopefully not appropriately named for the drivers in this GT3 fixed and sprint series to deal with because, well, that's the slower chicane, that's the boring chicane, just so we're clear.
I think it will be very unboring on lap 1, though. It won't be quite as exciting as it would be if we had a full field pileup in the high-speed chicane, but there's going to be some bobbling. There's definitely going to be some contact. This is a track specifically designed to be a road course bull ring where drivers are to make contact with each other. So it'll certainly be dramatic, and I hope you'll join Arjuna next week, because I'm not going to be here again, unfortunately.
I know. You decided not to be here, and so in retaliation, by the way, I've decided that you're going to have to deal with Mugello, well, not Mugello. You're dealing with Suzuka. I get to come back and deal with Mugello.
You lucky dog. I do like Suzuka, but that's, we go to Suzuka every season. We've never been to Mugello before.
Yeah, I know. I'm picking the right ones. We do get new tracks relatively frequently, though, and that is something that's quite fun, I think, Joey, is that, because we also follow the iRacing official schedules, drivers do have to learn some of these new tracks. It's not necessarily just tracks that they got plenty of experience in.
Maybe we'll get the Hyderabad street circuit now. Send iRacing there, Chicago style. Scan it while the streets are closed.
Let's not do that, because as much as it sounds appetizing, the street circuit, I'm not kidding you here, Joey. It's legitimately within walking distance of where my grandparents lived.
There you go. And I think
I don't need the nightmares. I don't need the nightmares of the traffic, Joey. Don't do that.
It must have changed the track design, but I think when I saw it last, it was like 4 corners. It's like a couple of lefts and a couple of rights.
You know why? Because it's on what they call the Necklace Ring Road.
Ooh.
Yeah, you see how I know this? Because, just again, it's walking distance.
I'm bringing this back all night, Arjuna. This is Indian city planning chat for the rest of the night.
Oh, no, don't get that far into the weeds, because I never grew up there. All I know is the memories from going there on vacation. Anyway, besides the point, focus back on the Hockenheimring, at least for the time being, because it's time to go for the GT3 Sprint Series. Open setups, 5 more minutes on the clock, and well, sometimes just a little bit more unpredictability. Yes, with a few less cars, but those drivers even more closely matched up towards the front. Joey, we've already seen 35 minutes of racing. We've talked about the chaos on the opening lap that we've seen. Schedule doesn't really change too much. These drivers have already seen Aragon and Daytona in the rearview mirror. Let's talk about the championship standings right now, where SimCity's Racing's Chris Beats leads from Vincent Trepanier, and then Dalton Zavadil running behind with Jimmy Libre and then Martin Chris, the rest of the top 5. Could realistically, though, at this point, Joey, be anyone's game.
Yeah, the winner of last week, Dan Krasowski, not even in the top 10 in the championship because he didn't even start race number 1. He has a 100% win record this season, and hopefully he misses no other rounds this season because you only get 1 drop week out of the 9 weeks of this championship. So if you have a DNS or a DNF, that is your drop week automatically. You've got to be on it every single other week. But for Chris Beats, for example, he's had 2 good weeks. Vincent Trepanier's had 2 good weeks. They can afford to have a bad week and drop it. Krasowski can't afford to miss a single another week.
You say that, it's not like you want to have a bad week, right? You're just hoping that you can have something in reserve heading in through maybe the penultimate round of the championship, and then, like we mentioned, final round of the season. That result stands no matter what. You need to deliver if a championship is on the line. Well, when you talk about the teams, SimCity Racing has 4 drivers inside of the top 6 in the Drivers' Championship, and so then when you look at the Team Championship, it's maybe no real surprise to see something similar. We'll take a look at those points where we'll see it's SimCity Racing 1 first, and then SimCity Racing 2 second. At least they made it nice and easy for us, Joey, to try and figure out the ordering.
That is a good thing for commentators. We're not great at math, but Chris Beats, Dalton Zavadil, they are SimCity Racing 1. SimCity Racing 2 is Martin Crisp, Jason Allen, and Brandon Tabone. And the latter of the 2 teams have had a slightly worse time. Crisp and Allen scored points for SimCity Racing 2 last week as Tabone had a bad day. SimCity Racing 1 got big points with Beats winning in week 1, so they're just barely ahead. And I don't think we're going to be talking about any of these other teams, Arjuna. Vincent Trepanier does not have a teammate with race-winning speed on most weeks. Neither does Jimmy Yebra for CRT. Christian Challoner has no teammates. Precision Racing Esports has Acosta and Ovando, who may be able to win later on in the season. I think it's SimCity Racing's Teams Championship to win, though. We just have to figure out which one it's going to be.
So does that sound like we're talking about SimCity Racing 1 versus SimCity Racing 2?
Exactly.
Sounds fun. Sounds interesting. It means hopefully no team-on-team drama.
And I hope it gets very confusing in the final race when we have potentially 2 in P1 and 1 in P2, and that'll be so much fun.
Yeah, we'll have to break out the live points.
They should change the next. It should be SimCity Racing and like Tim City Racing or something.
SimCity Racing and wait, I need to Google something here before I can make this pun. Google work faster. Cities XL Racing 2. No, that doesn't work. I was trying to...
I thought you were going for Rim City Racing, and I was going to say you better make sure that's car related.
Oh, that would have been good. No, I was just trying to find a game title that competes with SimCity.
Cities Skylines Racing? Yeah, there.
Cities XL. I picked the worst one, didn't I? Anyway, that's a look at the points. That's enough joshing in the commentary booth for the time being. We'll get back to it in just a handful of moments' time. Don't you worry about that. But qualifying underway. 7 minutes left to go for the drivers as it runs right now. Dalton Zavadil, the one that sits on top, and with a full 1/10 of a second back to Vincent Trepanier.
Mr. Z doing well. No surprise there. Hasn't won this season, though. Did win a race last season. Totally dominant at Laguna Seca in his first season of the PRL, but he's been usually second or third in the SimCity Racing pecking order so far this year. But he's showing everybody up this time. Clipping a little bit of gravel, though, on the exit. And that is probably going to disallow this lap, and he'll have to set up a new lap to hopefully go a little bit faster.
You can see the sun just reflecting off of the glass as we work our way through. You can tell it's been a long day for me.
Is it glass, or is it like, is it perspex?
Whatever it is.
Whatever.
The material.
Polychromate.
You're making me think too much right now. You're also making me think because these conditions are in the wrong unit. 66 Fahrenheit, though, is about as cold as you can get on iRacing. It equates to, in proper units, about 19 degrees Celsius.
Ja. Das ein cold day in
I mean,
Germany.
you wanted snow. I mean, we can get closer.
It's divided by 2 and you've got snow there.
Oh, yes. Not a bad point.
I didn't study up on my German, though, as always. One of these days I am actually going to prepare, and I'm gonna take everybody by surprise. But
Sprechen
no
die
German
Deutsch?
today. No Sprechen die Deutsch, and Fahrenheit isn't even German. It's Swedish, I think. So
Is it really?
I believe Mr. Fahrenheit, or Dr. Fahrenheit probably, I believe he was a Swedish scientist.
I'm learning so much here. Boris Vando's going to wrap his way towards the line. Not sure if this is going to be a lap of improvement. Who spun? You can see that in the background. That's Chris Beats in pit lane. I can't figure out who that was spinning through the final corner.
Neither could I, but by the way, Fahrenheit rather was a German. He was born to a German family in Poland, so he was German in a way. Celsius was the Swedish one.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And Mr. Lord Kelvin was British, I assume, because he was.
Genuinely what I was gonna ask next. What about Mr. Kelvin?
What about Rankin and Romer and all the other ones? We go into temperatures all day.
I mean, this is sounding very much like an educational program right now.
I mean, that's my job.
Is it really?
In qualifying, you know, when things are calm a little bit, when nobody's improving, we might as well get our educational programming out of the way. If we're successful on RaceSpot, Arjuna, we're going to have to start meeting those federal government guidelines in the U.S. about educational and informative programming.
Who is that Audi that went around? It didn't quite trigger on my timing screen, but just shows that even in qualifying, as Trepanier takes avoiding action, how much these drivers are pushing. We're getting into that rumble now as well, where in this series they get open setups. That means they can dial the car in and also take fuel out, which means at the end of the session, Joey, yes, hypothetically you can go faster, but that's only if you've been coming in and getting a little bit more fuel into your car.
Yeah, this is basically this is the sprint race. It's the sprint series in name, and it's a real sprint in qualifying, because this is where you test out your qualifying setup, least fuel possible, most nimble setup imaginable, and you're just trying to get every last 10th out of this. Tire wear, everything else doesn't matter at all. It's just 100% raw speed. Chris Beats across the line. I don't think there's going to be any raw speed there. I think he was setting up a new lap, to which we will see if he's effective now.
I think indeed that is what was happening. Will be his penultimate lap of the session. May give him an opportunity to dial up the tires. Here comes Gary Brown down in 20th position as he runs his way to the line. Don't think this is going to be one where he's necessarily improving, and indeed finds himself about a second off of his previous best marker. 2 minutes and 30 seconds left to go. Here's Simon Theriault. He mentioning that Vincent Trepanier doesn't have a teammate that maybe has race winning potential. Excuse me, Joey. He's only 15 thousandths off of Mr. Z.
I am sorry, Simon Theriault. Maybe
He
that's
heard
what I
you.
needed to say. Exactly, that's what I needed to say to get him back up there, up on the front row. He has won a race before in the PRL. The first race he ever had in the PRL, he ended up winning in a GT4 car. Just hasn't got it done in GT3 just yet, but maybe this is finally the day.
That was a close lap for one of the drivers who are tracking across the line. Abner Acosta has not had the best start to the season that maybe he would have wanted, as he focuses on road courses a bit more this season, right, Joey? I'm not crazy.
He is very yellow as well, so it's good to see that. I don't believe he was in the full yellow car early on. He was in the usual PRE livery. Now he's differentiable, but he is focusing more on road courses, doing GT3. He is still doing the NASCAR, or just the Cup Series, rather. He is still focusing on that, but no more Grand National Series for him, which is good for me, because that's one less car I have to not beat.
How have your results been without Acosta?
Not really any different, unfortunately, because week 1, has it been 1 week or 2 weeks by now? I don't even know. Week 1 was a crash, and week 2 was also a crash.
Gotcha.
Or actually, it was a penalty and a crash.
Here comes Trepanier. That was another build lap. He gets one final chance now with which to push as he runs his way with 60 seconds left to go. Gary Brown's in pit lane, so that's his recognition that the session will be done for him. And David Mendoza next to line in an Audi.
See what he can do out of the final corner, not using every inch of road, which is not usually a good sign. You can extend it a little bit farther out there. Not quite as far as Abner Acosta tried to do, but you can still get out there on the green stuff. Jimmy Yebra got pretty far out there, carried a ton of speed. He's up to P4. Martin Crisp improves as well.
I'm seeing a bit of purple on my timing screen. These drivers that cross the line will get one opportunity after this with which to go. Libra back down on pit lane, though, so he's done. So will be Brandon Tabone. He finds about 0.2 of a second. He's now up into 4th position in another one of the SimCity Racing contingent. Who's next going to be to the line? Here comes Kevin Simpson. Acosta's up to 11th. The 606 dances out of the final corner. Not going to be an improvement there. And as we get ready now for the checkered flag to fly, Marc-Andre Deschardins next to see the line. We'll see final times coming up on the board.
Let's see what those familiar purple unit Sim Sports colors can do. It is going to be no improvement for Desjardins. 1/10 slower. No timeout on track for him. Boris Ovando also says, I'm not improving whatsoever, and he just takes his losses and practices a pit entry, which is a very important thing to do. There's critical tenths you can gain here with that late braking marker and that tight radius at pit entry here.
You just have to hope that you're not getting called in and in, out, in and in, and you can avoid the drama of the grass. Trepanier sees the line, no expression as he improves, but not to pole, and not even an improvement in position. It was just to be behind his teammate Simon Theriault. 33 thousandths of a second split the front three drivers.
I need to start dunking on Simon Theriault more. I said Vincent Trepanier was the #1 driver of that team, and Theriault said not anymore. I'm going to be beating you to that. None of them could beat Dalton Zavadil to pole, unfortunately. He's still going to be at the head of the field, but he's got all Advanced Motorsports behind him.
Well, this will be fun. Have plenty of time to burn off the clock, but I don't think there are necessarily too many drivers who are out there and trying to improve on their lap times right now. And so that is going to mean that basically locked and loaded for the session, maybe with the exception here of Kevin Simpson in that 606. No, he pirouettes right and dives down onto the lane. So, one crazy opening lap. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, no commentator's curse. A little less chaos this time around.
Can only hope, but I think, I was talking about Crandon in the fixed race, I think the sprint race needs to go to the Porsche Experience Center inside the track. I still want to see a racing event held there, because it's such a good track. It's so fun to drive, and it is wide enough for overtakes in places. So
does iRacing actually let you race on it?
yes, you can only load 6 cars on one layout of it, but I think if you do the outer layout, you can load a full grid.
Interesting. Again, can we
heat racing opportunities at the Porsche Experience Center at Hockenheim.
Can we do it for an all-star event, please?
Maybe. I mean, that would be at the top of my list. I love the Porsche Experience Center.
I'm just suggesting it. We'll see what works out. Like I said, I think all drivers are at the line and ready to go now, just waiting for the command from the iRacing race direction to take the formation behind the pace car and to get underway for that relatively short pace lap before getting underway. Field be left in control of Mr. Z, Dalton Zavadil, who was flying in the SimCity Racing car. Let's see how things will get underway, though, to get this green flag dropped. It's running down trackside once again for 40 minutes of racing action. Let's see how they'll line up with that qualifying session in the books. It is going to be Dalton Zavadil with a teammate behind in Chris Beats. Vincent Trepanier and Simon Theriault, though, will line up alongside as teammates try and get a jump at the start here. Brandon Tabone and then Arnaud Genet, 5th and 6th positions as the SimCity Racing contingent continues. But as you get back to Boris Ovando, that streak comes to an end. Jimmy Lieber alongside with Martin Crisp and then Fernando Yaquez through the rest of the top 10. Once again, around half a second splitting those front 5 rows. And Miguel Angel Fonseca rides with David Mendoza on that 6th row with Kwoknin in VR alongside Kevin Simpson. Abner Acosta, Sammy Hendricks in 15th and 16th with the Bassmaster Ethan Bass in the Ford alongside Jeremy Littleton in the Ferrari. Gary Brown and Marc-Andre Deschardins about 1 second off the pace and down on the edge of the top 20 with Adrian Kokolas, Cameron Keeley and then JP Alfonso, Carlos Ocono rounding out the top 24. Just Dimitri Sosno at the back of the 25 car field in the number 25 as well. A little bit of symmetry there. Always great to take a look at some of those drivers underway. You could see Adrian Kokolas in the top left. Miguel Angel Fonseca's hoping for some better luck with Kwoknin and Vincent Trepanier sat below.
Yeah, and don't get confused. That is not former IndyCar driver Jack Harvey. That is Adrian Kokolas. So don't get scared. Don't get your hopes up. Miguel Angel Fonseca, he's got to get his hopes up, though, because tomorrow night, the Truck Series in the PRL goes to Willow Springs, and I think he has a distinct advantage there as a road course specialist.
What?
Exactly.
Is this on the iRacing schedule?
Yes, the Truck Series and the C-Fix Series and official iRacing are going to Willow Springs.
Interesting. Well, we throw 40 minutes onto the clock. We saw some early pit stops last time around. Not necessarily sure what we should expect. Boris Ovando, I can tell he was not made the starting grid, and so he's going to have to start from pit lane. Everyone else is off and away and getting ready to rumble.
I worry that might be that pesky Boris Ovando internet striking again. He's been having trouble with that lately. I hope somebody can hook him up with an Ethernet cable, because if anybody needs it, it's him at this point.
Who do you think comes out on top here? SimCity Racing, Advanced Motorsports, or someone else behind?
The pole sitter has a very distinct advantage here. If he can get a good start, I think it is going to be the Zetmeister, Dalton Zavadil, winning today.
Well, last time he was in this position, he was able to convert it at the start. Can he do so again? He will jump initially, I think. Simon Theriault. Car's not in shot. Now we're underway. Green flag flies for the second time tonight at Hockenheim. And what can the Advanced Motorsports pair do? Oh my goodness gracious. Chaos into the opening corner as around goes Chris Beats, the championship leader. Boris Ovando is now going to see his way off a pit exit with cars still trying to filter on through. One other car still trying to spin it around. In through turn 2 though. Only that moment of drama. Single file for the top 10.
That was almost the entire field behind Brandon Tabone that got involved there one way or another. That was absolutely insane. You can see the gap behind Brandon Tabone. They're still going at it. It's not over. That's one of the Audis back, turned back around. JP Alfonso is all the way around. The 21 of Carlos Ocono is falling down the order as well. You said it was going to be calmer in this race, Arjuna. It absolutely was not so far.
I mean, can we at least get through the hairpin safely, please? That's a bit of a request more than anything. I think first groupings have been able to. Still have Gaggles down the back trying to do so as through the kink. You see Ethan Bass in the middle of a sandwich with Sammy Hendricks directly behind. Ethan Bass is up 7 positions at the start of this race. There you see Gary Brown. He is also up 5 positions. Only the top 4 are where they qualified. There is a bit of a streak and a breakaway happening here as we come to the end of the opening lap. As you see, very wide. Fernando Yaquez trying to close up and pushing hard.
And something that we missed in the absolute calamity in turn 1 is that Advanced Motorsports, both of those teammates, they did a very good job of organizing themselves going into turn 1. Trepanier and Theriault were not side by side. They slotted in line and made sure that Dalton Zavadil didn't make up as much time as he might have otherwise, getting through turn 1 cleanly with them fighting behind him. Theriault hasn't had the best lap 1. He's lost 8/10 to Zavadil over the course of the lap, but he is still in the precipice of draft range. And it's time to look at this about 17 different times, I think.
Now, so that's the 24 that comes to blows with Chris Beats, who has a big old contact to the inside wall. That car, I don't think, is going anywhere anytime soon without a requisite trip down pit lane. But it's almost as though once those cars came together, Joey, there was not much they could really do.
No, there was nothing anybody could do behind either, but that was just, I think, Chris Beats. It wasn't even Chris Beats getting aggressive and filling a hole. It was just two cars going into the same piece of real estate with Chris and Jimmy Ibra, and that little bit of contact ends up looping them around. Both of them tried to overcorrect, and they corrected right into the path of poor old Martin Crisp and Dimitri Sosno and many, many others who just couldn't do anything. Crisp just gets absolutely speared in the side there. Arnaud Genet too.
Yeah, Arnaud Genet not going to be able to look at that incident because he was involved, so another steward will get the call. Here's JP Alfonso up the inside in his Audi, storms past Gary Brown, and then as he battles with Miguel Fonseca, a bit of a tag, and then around he goes.
And Fonseca did end up spinning as well. I thought Fonseca might have got away with that, but was not quite so lucky. Gets turned around himself, goes all the way to the back of the field. Yeah, that was just too late in the brakes for Alfonso. Lap 1 jitters, was probably already a little bit, unsettled by everything that happened in front of him the corner before. Got distracted, lost it, and there's even more in the stadium section.
That's Cameron Keeley in the Full Tilt V Motorsports number 264. It doesn't seem like there's that lasting damage, but yeah, they're finding it difficult here at the Hockenheimring. And again, I'll go back to maybe just a relative lack of practice compared to maybe what they would be used to, because maybe more attention focused on the Daytona International Speedway. Let's see what happened here to Cameron Keeley. Boris Ovando is on the outside, and as they rub doors, they almost get into a Seabow Racing car, and then on the rejoin, you see Boris Ovando getting relatively unscathed back onto track.
It has just been a roller coaster of emotions for Boris Ovando today. The little bit of contact with Keeley is what sets off everything there. Ovando did not turn in. He just got almost glued to the door of that car, and that was very, very lucky for one of the CRT cars ahead to avoid that, and there was even more trouble. Miguel Angel Fonseca's in trouble as well.
Yeah, they're struggling to keep it safe as Ethan Bass now gets past Kevin Simpson on the outside through the second part of the arena. Porsche spins, bit of a track blocker. They're going to get through cleanly, though. Somehow Simpson's not being tagged as Gary Brown pushed out wide.
Eventually Kevin says, I gotta back out of this. I gotta get off the racing surface so I don't get hit by anybody else coming through, because it is a little bit blind through there. There's a wall on the inside of that curb, so you couldn't really see where Kevin Simpson was. He was very late in the brakes. Bass late in the brakes too. Simpson just a little bit too late on the brakes. Makes rear wheel to rear wheel contact with the Ford of Ethan Bass. And yet again, heavier rear end, lighter front end. Inertia, physics tells you that when that starts to rotate, that's going to rotate the front end around as well and make sure that car's going all the way around.
Well, suddenly up towards the front, Advanced Motorsports in a great spot, even though you do have SimCity Racing 1 and 4, of course, where they find themselves able to save fuel. It is, of course, SimCity Racing 1 that find Dalton Zavadil up front. SimCity Racing 2, that Brandon Tabone back in 4th position.
Brandon's got to be pretty lonely here, though. He's almost got a full second up to Vincent Trepanier. He's got 3 seconds back to Fernando Jaquez. It's just the Tabone zone here, and he's hoping to get closer, but he might be having a very lonely race for the rest of these 34 minutes.
34 minutes, probably 15 minutes plus away from the pit stop window opening realistically for many of the drivers, but hasn't stopped others from taking gambles and coming in just that tad bit earlier, of course, if they feel like it's worth getting the damage repaired. When we run into the pit stop window as well, going to be important to see how much the field is spread on out, because if there are drivers that find themselves dropped into traffic, not going to be an ideal situation by any means. Boris Ovando started down on pit lane, and now Chris Beats, who has gone into GT3 touring specification and lost the rear wing main plate effectively of his car. Now, those are very valuable on the road, Joey. I'm not sure you want that in race car configuration, though.
But that's some crazy strength there. How are the uprights still standing? How did those stay on?
Because they're made from concrete.
Evidently, they're glued with covalent bonds or something.
The power of magic. Here's a look at the onboard from Vincent Trepanier, tucked in behind his teammate. As
in the void.
He's in the void. You can't see the staircase behind him. That leads to nothingness. But there's no tongue movement right now. Where is it?
No, he's just... You have to imagine that he's probably somewhat bored right now, because there isn't really anything he can do. He's saying something now. I don't have my French translation ready, so I couldn't really read that. I saw an O, and I don't know what he would be reacting so strongly to because not much was happening there on that stream.
What do you think it might be? Come on, give me a gander.
I mean, honestly, him and Tyrio are kind of in a holding pattern right now, so they might just be shooting the breeze and trying to keep each other amused while they also try and keep Dalton Zavadil at least somewhat close.
Yeah, we can see, by the way, gap is starting to stretch out, so maybe there is going to be a bit of impatience and urgency building behind as they funnel in towards the final section. Look how close to the wall they dart on the entry into the right-hander. Set the corner up as much as possible. With almost now 10 minutes done, we'll come to the end of lap number 5. That's a beautiful look from up above of where the drivers are trying to take strategic straight lines, cutting over the curve, and importantly here through the penultimate and final corner. Got to be very, very accurate, even if you do want to try and maximize the run. The pair of Porsches looking very strong. It's Porsches running 1 through 6 at this time.
Yeah, there were a couple non-Porsches up there who I think got erased on lap 1, but 2 Audis had a good lap 1 with David Mendonça and Kwok Nin. The Ford of Ethan Bass, as always, is doing pretty well. He's up into P9. Sammy Hendricks, for that matter, is in an Audi as well. So it's not a total Porsche festival in the top 10 at the very least. No Christian Challenger this week in his Ferrari, unfortunately. That would have been a little bit more diversity in the top 10, but still, I'll take 40% non-Porsche.
Maybe he's getting ready for Daytona, and at the very least trying to dial in the BOP that the drivers will have to be dealing with. Poor Christian, I don't envy him for that one. All the work that goes into it, speaking from experience with the IMSA Esports balance of performance. Jeremy Littlin leads the train for 11th position, so top 10, about 3 seconds up the road from them. At the number 144 of Sammy Hendricks. Cocolas, Desjardins, Genet still in contention here as Littlin slips out wide. Remarkable to think Genet was involved in all of that chaos of the opening lap. He's still running in a relatively decent spot.
Yeah, it looks like he didn't get very much damage, but Adrian Cocolas is putting a big ton of pressure on Jeremy Littleton here. Not able to get by, though. Was peeking to the inside, was really trying to put the fear in the eyes of Jeremy, but Jeremy was not phased, was not going to lose it, was not going to outbrake himself. It's just textbook defensive driving, and Cocolas has to wait again.
Now, that camera is out of focus, right? That's not just my eyes.
Yeah, Adrian, one thing he does have to do is he does have to keep focus, unlike his camera.
Well, he is from down under, so maybe the camera's just not... Do they not focus down under?
I don't know, Arjuno. I think that's a pretty offensive assumption.
So you tried to do a northern accent earlier. You did a Scottish accent then.
My Australian accent is the only accent I can do.
That was better. The first time it just sounded like you were very nasally, to be honest.
Well, you know...
It's part of it, isn't it?
We got big mucus down here.
That's from all the bugs that, you got to be protected from. Anyway.
Big old bug mucus.
We'll get you to do a Steve Irwin impression at one point. Regardless, Zavadil's almost broken the draft up front. 1.5 is that magic number that you're really trying to hit. If you are Terrio, you are Trepanier, is it worth thinking of a bit of a swap around next time in towards the hairpin?
Probably not. I don't know if that would really be effective at all because Terrio was faster in qualifying. He does seem to have reasonable race pace here. I just think Dalton Zavadil's too quick right now. He is the fastest driver in the field. He's the fastest in race pace right now. I think the only thing that Terrio and Trepanier can really do right now is hope for a mistake and just hope to minimize their losses here. So if there is that mistake, they can actually maximize on it. But I think they're both similar pace in second and third.
Probably not off, especially given that setup's probably not too dissimilar amongst the pair of teammates. So maybe there is just a bit more now speed from Zavadil after conserving some tires. Wouldn't necessarily think it's a big factor with the cool conditions that they're dealing with, but these are little margins that make a difference as well. A bit wide there from Cocolas. Littlin a little bit slippery on the corner exit as well. Gap now up front after that mistake from Littlin sees Sammy Hendricks about 4 seconds clear of these drivers behind. They're only 8 minutes away, realistically, Joey, from when we traditionally see cars come down into pit lane. But because people come in as late as 10 minutes to go in this race, if you're stuck behind right now a driver like Jeremy Littlin, might not be a terrible idea to come down to the box.
Exactly. If you're maybe Arnaud Genet right now, your teammate Marc-Andre Desjardins has let you by, so you've got one position, but Kukulis and Littleton are not going to be quite so friendly. You're going to have to pass them with actual speed. So if he does get stuck back here, he might be well off to look for some clean track further back in the field and go for a little bit of an undercut that way. But he's looking for one spot on track here. Peeks to the inside of Kukulis. Can Arnaud be late enough on the brakes to actually do it? He can. Doesn't get into the back of Littleton. Gets clear of Kukulis. Excellent move from Arnaud Genet.
Nice little slide, all things considered, for both parties just to get it executed without costing each other. So, Genet grabs 12th. Is he going to think about the move and trying to find his way to a bit of a separation? Already got within half a car length in through the braking zone of the Mercedes-Benz arena, so has a chance there. Trepanier now will see his teammate be 2 seconds off of Dalton Zavadil, I think, come the end of this lap. Brandon Tabone just sits very, very steady behind. Dalton Zavadil seems like he's in a very good position to grab another PRL victory.
And I'm glad we're in Germany, because that makes our debate of Z versus Z very easy. It's neither of those. In German, it's Zet. So he's just Herr Zet today.
See, the problem is that I'll get in trouble if I try. I can't do accents. You can.
You can say
I can't.
Zet. You can say Zet. This is one syllable.
No. I can't do accents. I can barely speak English, Joey. I mean, people listening to this broadcast can attest to it.
Maybe we could read through the German alphabet in the meantime. I only know the English alphabet, and we learned the Spanish alphabet in elementary school. There was a song by Barbara MacArthur.
I had to learn the Greek alphabet in college. Probably couldn't remember it.
Alpha, beta, yeah. All the classics.
There's a psi in there somewhere. Phi.
Epsilon,
Zeta, Beta,
Omicron,
Gamma, yeah, all of that.
Octagon.
Well, I don't think that was it there. Genet's trying to get past Little and covers the inside, though, as you watch below. That fight for 11th position, now getting on the run in towards the Mercedes-Benz arena. Genet's got to look to the outside. Now, didn't have the overlap, so Littleton had an opportunity to cover the middle of the track. This is costing them oodles of time at this point.
It is. Arnaud was really hunting there coming into the Mercedes arena, but just couldn't really find the door. He hops over the curb, gets a couple of inches in the air. That's not going to help his momentum coming into the stadium section, so he's going to be waiting for probably the entirety of this third sector, maybe the entirety of the first sector as well for a second chance. He had an opportunity, but he just didn't want to push it when it wasn't going to happen. And that's the sign of a smart driver who doesn't want to be involved in an incident. He's going to hang back when the door isn't actually open.
He had a half look up the inside there. I've got to say, given that I think you can get to the end, I don't think it's a terrible idea to come down to pit lane, although maybe just a bit worried about being dropped off into some traffic packs behind. So these drivers now 6 seconds behind Sammy Hendricks. Such is the deficit that they are building by fighting in these intriguing ways, and that's where the lack of fighting between the teammates up front is helping them. Fernando Yaquez continues to lead for Abner Costa and David Mendoza. So Mendoza, I think this is one of the first times we've seen him in the Audi, isn't it? So he might be one that takes the 20-point penalty as a result.
You might be right. I'm
used to him in a BMW. That's the problem.
Well, I think he was in the BMW last season.
Is that very 2023?
Yeah, he's been in the Audi all season, I think. He's been in the Audi this season. But we're so used, because he was in the BMW last season, and the season before, and the season before, and the season before. How many seasons has it been since we had a Pro-Am split? That was his first BMW season. It's been a while.
Wow, yeah, that is going back a long time, so who knows. Here comes Genet, though, trying to battle out of the arena. Long way around for Little and sees him hold on. Genet going to try and have the half look up the inside into the final sector of the track. This is, again, I'm going back to it. One of these drivers needs to be wise. Make the call. Come down to pit lane.
Arnaud just wants to make it more exciting for us. He wants to get by on the track. He's trying to find places to get by that just aren't overtaking opportunities. Sends it through the final corner, and that is, oh no, Arnaud. That was over-aggression, that was a little bit stupid, and that was guaranteed to happen going for an overtake there.
I mean, what was I saying?
I was complimenting Arnaud for, being using a little bit of tact and hanging back, and then he goes a little bit silly mode.
You were giving him his props as well for making things exciting for us, which fair play.
Exactly.
You can't take that away from him. What you can though is say you can only be the hero when you don't crash, and that
that is true.
Unfortunately, I think Arnaud has kind of left himself in that situation. 2 into 1 racing incident. That's now 2 incidents that Arnaud's been involved in today that he's not going to be able to review.
Well, I think he can probably review the first one because he didn't really do anything. He just kind of had a car spearing into the side of him at 60 miles per hour.
But I feel like I would probably... Arnaud's a bigger man than me. Maybe
physically,
maybe metaphorically,
both physically and metaphorically.
No, more metaphorically than physically, unless he's 6'5".
Yeah, you're probably bigger, height wise.
But I would struggle. I would struggle as a race control. I've done race control before, but if I was involved in an incident, even if I wasn't directly involved, you best believe whoever drove into me and dinged me is going to get more than a slap on the wrist.
Imagine that fight, Arnaud versus Arjuna.
How tall is Arnaud? We need to know the answer here.
I don't know. I can't imagine him. I've never seen him standing up. I've only seen him sitting down. But I can't imagine he's more than, 5'10". He gives off 5'10" energy.
So hopefully I can sit on him and we don't have to worry about too much.
Oh, that's for prime time.
No, that's for the RaceSpot Fighting Championship. Are you not aware of this? Chris Beats is going to come down to pit lane.
That was a late entry, though. I hope he's within the parameters of the rules there. I don't know if he came in a little bit too late there, but if he did, we'll get an instant answer. If he's sitting in his pit box for 30 seconds, we'll see if he did get a penalty. I think he'll be okay, though.
His teammate Martin Crisp is going to follow him in. You can see the contact on the left front. The rear wing main plate reappears and reattaches itself magically onto the back of the number 33 machine. But RaceSpot Fighting Championship coming to the Coke lot of the Indy 500 soon.
Oh, that's where the best fighting happens. Just people totally out of their minds in a grass parking lot. That's good stuff.
Jeremy,
big trouble.
We both noticed at the same time. It's off the hairpin, and unfortunately, I think you can Sherlock Holmes this one and figure out that frustration may have boiled over. Aggressive driving. He's still trying to spin it around. Here's the look at the replay.
Yeah, clunka over the curb. Traction control says, I'm going to freak you the heck out, and I'm going to spin you around. And Kukulis was able to avoid that, I think. I don't think he made any contact. Desjardins was able to get through as well. But the real embarrassing thing is after the initial spin happens, that's no harm, no foul. Well, actually lots of harm and lots of foul, but lots of people have done that before. The worst part is he spins it back around trying to get it back going again. And that's unfortunate, and I'm glad we didn't show it.
The thing that's we saw it on the live picture if you were paying close attention. The thing that I think surprises me is I very much expected there to be contact. When we went to the replay, I was like, you know what, there's going to be contact. No ifs or buts about it. And, well, the fact that it was the curb and then the traction control that seemingly kicked in and maybe looped the car around was a rather interesting one. The move in the battle for the top 4 right now, effectively, as Simon Theriault has dropped 2.5 seconds behind Dalton Zavadil. Marc-Andre Desjardins is going to get past Adrian Kukulis as the Aussie now tries to get back into the draft and run his way into the hairpin.
I don't know how effective the outside is going to be here. If Desjardins can be late in the brakes and park it on the apex, he will be in a good place here. But into the hairpin, can Desjardins beat Kukulis on the brakes? He can. Kukulis for the switchback, tries to get on the throttle. Doesn't work out for him. Desjardins is going to hang on, and Kukulis, he knows that he had an opportunity there and just couldn't quite do anything with it.
Still, though, half this race left to go. Plenty of time on the board, so by no means can you be too worried about how this race has gone. Whereas Arnaud Genet, he's only about 2.5 seconds off the back of these drivers, so he could end up closing up by his own accord. And there you can see him just at the back of the shot onto the short run into the right-hander. The race leader, though, as I was mentioning, has started to put the jets on. 2.8, the gap at the line.
I don't think anybody's touching Herzet, at least on pace. They need something to go wrong for him. But he's got to start thinking about pit stops soon. How long does he take it? The answer is probably as long as humanly possible, because he can't afford to take the risk of coming in right now, ending up in traffic, and losing those 2.6 seconds of gap he has by being stuck in traffic deeper in the field. So he's going to go basically to the end of the fuel tank, come in after or at the same time as everybody else, and he'll have clean track all the same and get to keep doing this.
Cameron Keeley's into pit lane, so we are starting to see the drivers start to filter their way on in one by one, slowly but surely. These conditions, of course, quite cool, so tires should be in basically optimal conditions through the entirety of the race. There you can see the long left-hander, and behind Marc-Andre Desjardins, still Coca-Cola's, and then Gary Brown and Jimmy Libre trying to fight his way back up in the Seabal Racing Team number 74. I think hypothetically, with Marc-Andre Desjardins a full 12 seconds behind Sammy Hendricks, not sure there's really more than 11 that Libre can be hoping for.
Yeah, that is probably the case, but he was pretty fast, qualified in the top 5, so you never know. If he can get clean air ahead of Desjardins, maybe that gap is about 10 seconds with 10 minutes to go. I don't know. I'm not going to count anything out. I also think 11th is probably the limit, but I want to see the comeback for Jimmy. That would be good stuff.
Sitting on the fence right now, aren't you?
Exactly. Oh, yeah, he drove over something there. I think he might have gotten into the wall. That was a big clonk, but I think that might just be damage from lap 1.
That might also just be the iRacing gods smiling down on him and just visually showing the damage for a second. Kwoknin's come down onto pit lane, so one by one again, drivers are starting to commit. There's Brown, who's going to peel off to the right and not as aggressive on the entry as we saw slightly earlier. Just trying to make sure he slows down and gets in without any major trouble. So, those at the front expected to go long. Brandon Tabone, in a bit of no man's land, finds himself 1.5 seconds off of the Advanced Motorsports pair. What would you do in his situation, Joey? Not in terms of strategy here, but in terms of mental mindset. Where do you leave yourself?
I'd probably be looking over on my second monitor on the straights and looking for something to distract myself, because I'm probably not having that much fun right now. But Brandon Tabone is far stronger mentally than most commentators are, so he's still pushing. He's still trying to make sure he can stay as close as possible to Trepigny and Thierio, because as I keep saying, if there's one little mistake, if there's one little bobble, and we saw a lot of those at the end of the last race as the tires started to heat up a little bit and drivers started to get fatigued just that little bit, Tabone needs to be right there to pick up the pieces, and he might just end up on the podium if he does just keep close like this.
He's hoping to get us all into the Tabone zone at some point this season.
Exactly.
By getting up into the top spot. But SimCity Racing have so many drivers that he's going to have to beat plenty of his teammates. And
that's what we should just call his onboard. Every time we go on board with him,
we're in the Tabone zone?
We're in the Tabone zone.
It's a show within a show.
Exactly.
Did you get that reference?
Sort of.
No, you didn't.
Just as a concept of a thing that exists?
No. You need to watch Jet Lag.
Oh, no, I've never even heard of that.
It's basically a game of tag. Well, that's how they started. They played games of tag, but like blown up to a world scale. It's fun. Joey, I'm recommending it highly. And viewers as well.
Streaming on Nebula?
You can watch on Nebula, but all episodes are also on YouTube, with the exception of new episodes are out 1 week earlier on Nebula. And so I am very much enjoying their race, where they go from the top of the U.S., so in Alaska, down to the very southernmost point of the U.S. in Florida.
Interesting.
And they play games along the way. There's fun shenanigans. There's guests. There's shows within shows. The Tabone Zone. I mean, that next week.
Have they had Brandon Tabone on?
Not yet, but they're going to need to get a sim racer on sooner rather than later.
Well, you could be the one. You send out your application now.
I have to touch grass. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. It might not be good. It might be ice in Alaska.
Oh, for that's a bigger problem as well. I'm not. You can't get me to go to Alaska. I don't do well in cold.
You should have been here this morning. It snowed this morning. I was scraping. I was brushing the snow off the windshield. It was 20 degrees.
No,
we got big chills out here.
No. This sounds awful. How do you do it, Joey? How do you do it?
It was like, I mean, it wasn't that bad here, but in like Iowa and Minnesota and
Oh,
Kansas.
so you're just complaining for other people. You're not complaining for yourself.
It was cold here, but it wasn't quite minus 30 like it was in Iowa.
I was talking to my manager today, who works in Fahrenheit because he's an American, and he was saying that, oh, I'm used to it now when it goes below 0. I was like, oh yeah, when it's below freezing, it's pretty bad. Yeah, but then when it's below 30 Fahrenheit as well, he 30 doesn't say Fahrenheit, but he said, when it's below 30, I know it's pretty fine. I can go out with just a sweater. I'm going, you're crazy. I'm going to Daytona in a couple of weeks' time. I'm like, how many layers do I need to bring to be comfortable?
Yeah, I don't know what the Daytona temperature is going to be.
Below freezing, usually.
What?
Yeah.
Actually?
Yeah.
I'm looking this up right now.
Michelin usually has to bring a special compound of tire just for Daytona because of how cold it is.
At the Roar, it's looking like the low is going to be 44, which is not that bad. That's
not that bad, actually.
That's one jacket temperature.
I can deal with 40. I mean, that's warmer than it is in the Bay Area right now, probably.
There you go.
What is
it? How is it in? I wonder how hot it is in Singapore right now.
Oh, that is a difference. It's okay. It's 54 Fahrenheit right now in the Bay Area, so it's not that much different. But okay, I can deal with 44. I can't deal with freezing. That would not be fun. Freezing rain. I will be hiding inside the IMSA media buildings. That's probably what my plan will be.
You'll be surprised to know that every single day this week in Singapore, it's scheduled to rain, and it's 82 degrees.
I'm not actually, because Singapore has 2 seasons. It's the dry season and the rainy season. That's how it works. We also have 2 seasons here in the PRL. Pit season and racing season. Brandon Tabone goes 1 extra lap, but Dalton Zavadil, Simon Theriault, Vincent Trepanier, and then Fernando Yaquez, Acosta Mendoza, and a handful more surely will come down to the lane.
Now it is a monsoon of pit stops right now. And this is going to be possibly the most exciting thing we see. Dalton Zavadil, 10.9 seconds. Theriault, 11. Trepanier, 10.9 as well. Identical pit stops for the top 3. I think that tells you that all 3 of them were pushing very, very fast and almost identically to each other. And, yeah, nothing's going to quite change in the order there. But Brandon Tabone's going to be the big question. Has he been able to save any fuel whatsoever going 1 lap longer? Don't know yet, but they're side by side for 7th.
And these are cars mixed up on strategy. Yaquez has made a stop. Desjardins yet to do so. Close on exit. Desjardins tucks in behind Yaquez, and so now draft being fed by the Carousel Racing Team entry. Acosta has also made a trip down pit lane. Adrian Kukulis yet to do so. Who's going to be able to get onto the brakes? The most aggressive of them all. Up the inside, Abner Acosta is going to be taking advantage of relatively cool tires that give him maybe a bit more confidence to warm them up on exit as he lights up the rear end. Long way around though for Desjardins, going to give him the drive to the arena.
Acosta is going to have the outside, but he's going to have the inside through the first part of the corner, and Desjardins lifts out of the throttle and says, you know what, Abner, you're faster than me right now. You're on a different strategy. I have no intention to run side by side with you through the middle sector. And Abner is going to be very thankful for that, because now with Fernando Jaquez there, this is going to be a battle for P6. Sammy Hendricks is going to end up behind these guys. Tabone should end up right ahead of him. Abner could be 1 spot out of the top 5 before this race is over.
Here we go. Brandon Tabone is into pit lane, by the way, so we're about to find out where he fares in comparison to the Advanced Motorsports pair. Probably not expecting him to be able to jump anyone else, but just waiting. Porsche Symphony roars in pit lane. There goes Theriault. Trepanier will follow. Brandon Tabone still stuck behind and spent 9.3 seconds stationary in pit lane. He's closer, but not close enough.
Nope, that is going to be an even more lonely 4th place for Tabone right now, and it's a battle for P5 now between Jaquez and Acosta. That's how it's cycled out. Hendricks far behind them, actually ends up behind Ethan Bass as well, so Bass is up to 8th. The Bassmaster making up spots every lap, basically, and Kukulis, one of the big losers of it all as well, down to P10 and maybe P11 if Arnaud Genet can get a run out of turn 1.
Now we'll get out in front of Genet. There you can see Libra behind, and as we were saying for the Carousel Racing car, maybe not too much higher than 11th, but he has the chance for maybe 10th as well, it would seem, with the 10 minutes left in this one. Back up front, 3 seconds between Theriault and Dalton Zavadil. Advanced Motorsports 2nd and 3rd, not looking like they're going to be able to close in these remaining laps.
So I think what we have to do here is we're going to have to go a little bit to the right here. We're going to have everybody turn onto the Porsche Experience Center, and we can do the rest of the race there and have everybody learn the track in real time. Wouldn't that spice everything up?
Certainly be interesting, I guess. It's one way to do it.
I've always wanted like a changing track layout, and there's very few tracks you can actually do that at. I think you could do it at the Phoenix road course, because you can take the oval there, you can cut through. You could do it at Daytona, where you could force people to take the bus stop on different laps. There's all sorts of crazy ideas that we could spice things up with. I'm in my Bernie Eccleston era.
Oh, I mean, in that case, can we go to Paul Ricard and can we turn all the sprinklers on?
Yes, please.
But only on half the lap.
Exactly. What are you gonna do? You go for inters in the dry. You go for dries in the wet.
You know, you got to be
debate.
You got to be even more diabolical. So you need to turn them on at turn 1, have them off from turn 3 through like turn 7. So there's like a place where it's dry, but you are going to get some of the moisture and stuff, you know, that's transferred on just naturally over the course of the race. So you've got a little bit of that transition. Then you have a bone dry section for a little bit, and then back into that same repeating cycle. And if you could do it 3 times around a lap, there's no call that's going to be right on tires.
Exactly. A bone dry sector would be pretty good for Brandon.
So he could be in the Tabone zone.
Exactly.
That is going to become. We're going to get a graphic for that at some point, I think.
We got to get a Tabone zone graphic. But
you need to make a jingle for it as well. But what are we going to see about JP Alfonso's in the gravel, and then the Audi pitches around on him?
It was a good save. Spun it and kept it out of the wall, but I think he may have suffered a drive-through penalty, and he's currently down pit lane right now. You only get 13 incident points in the PRL before you're forced to serve drive-through, and that's going to be 1 for the off-track and 2 more for loss of control, and there were already 4 for his little bit of contact with Fonseca on lap 1. So I have to imagine that Mr. Alfonso is coming afoul of the rules. He's got to make sure not to get 4 more, because at 17x, you get totally disqualified. You get kicked out.
It's quite easy to do picking up off tracks. Turn 1, for example, run just a little bit wide through some of these corners, turn in a bit early, clip the not just sausage curb but the grass as well, feed out of the left-hander onto the back straightaway. Bit of communication clearly between the teammates as they don't seem too worried. I think they're quite confident that Tabone's not going to close and that they'll grab a double podium and probably finish as they are, 2nd and 3rd positions.
Yeah, I would be confident too. They're probably making French-Canadian jokes to each other, which are irrepeatable on the broadcast. I think they're just having fun in the final 6 minutes.
Do you know? Oh, he's waving to us. Hello.
Hi, Vincent. Hello.
Oh, and this is why we have to leave it up for quite a while, because oh no, he's doing the thing with the tongue.
Oh, we lost it.
No, we got it off the screen at an appropriate time.
We did do French jokes. Me and Ewan did French jokes in a very boring part of a very long iRacing league race with a very small amount of cars. And I don't
for a
remember
French broadcaster? Or
possibly.
company?
I don't remember any of the jokes though. One was about a pee in an elevator. They were interesting. They were interesting.
All I'll say is I was producing the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain this past weekend, where we had Martin Haven joining us for commentary, and you know, he's got plenty of good ones, like a stabbed rat. That's of course one of the famous ones. The one that I hadn't heard, that actually, as a producer, I'm sitting in my chair and I'm struggling to sit up because I'm laughing so hard, was when he said someone would be all over another driver like a fat pigeon on a chip.
There you go. That's good stuff.
That was pretty good.
So the French joke. So for all of our Québécois viewers, which there are a lot,
come on, go for
Racing League is a Québécois league. Qu'est-ce qui est petit rond vert et qui monte et qui descend?
Now
un petit pois dans un ascenseur.
Now I did French. I
did not do a single second of French, and I think everybody just realized that.
Yeah, I did French for about 10 years in school. I don't speak any French now, unfortunately.
Nope.
Except un petit peu. So
petit peu.
I understood nothing. I understood nothing of what you said, but I'm sure it was very funny. Congratulations, Joe, on that joke.
I think PRL head honcho Jerome Bertillon is probably watching tonight. He's not racing. He said he had a cold, so I hope he got some amusement out of that. In English, it translates to what is small, round, green, and goes up and down. A small green pea in an elevator. That's just not funny. Why are we? No wonder the French comedy scene isn't really burgeoning right now. They're teaching their kids that.
I mean, comedy is all on TikTok nowadays and Instagram. I mean,
it is.
It's not bad in some ways, right? It's a lot easier to find up-and-coming comedians. So from that perspective, it is quite good. But from the other perspective of, you know, there's a lot of just people trying to get views rather than making actual funny jokes. So there is some fun audience interaction stuff, though, so that's quite fun. Here's Abner Acosta all over the back of Fernando Yaquez. They'll have what should be closing on the 3 laps to go as they reach the line, because, of course, we've still got about 3:30 left on the clock.
See if Abner can at least get an attempt at an overtake here. He's going to have a little bit of a pick up ahead. I think that is that's the Audi of Kwok Nin, actually. If you were wondering what happened to him earlier, he got a penalty, a pit entry penalty, and fell out of the top 10, which is unfortunate. He was having a very good day, and unfortunately it's going to end in 21st most likely for him. But Abner could still do well here and avenge this race for himself and get up into the top 5. But Yaquez says, no, I'm blocking you all the way over.
It will really pinch you then, though, as you get to the apex. He is given the room. Acosta tries to switch it back, but just runs out of ground as he tries to rotate the car and get onto the power at the very same time. This is the battle for 5th position. Let's not forget, behind you've got Ethan Bass and Sammy Hendricks going at it for 8th and 9th positions in the Ford and the Audi respectively. Nice to see these little gaggles of battles still developing in the closing stages, because up front and getting ready to see what will be 2 laps to go. It's been a great drive for Dalton Zavadil. When he's on form, when he qualifies on pole, that's an ominous sign for the rest of the field.
And it's going to be a big day for him in the championship, because his teammate Chris Beats, 17th right now after that lap 1 crash. His teammate Brandon Tabone had nothing on him in 4th. His teammate Jason Allen isn't here. His teammate Martin Crisp is in 16th. All of that spells potentially championship lead, I think, for Dalton Zavadil. I think, yeah, he's 16 spots ahead of Chris Beats. He's only 10 points behind the championship. I think that'll be championship lead for Mr. Z.
Well, we'll get the math figured out maybe for next week. Not going to commit to that this week, that's for sure. But let's see if anyone else is going to be able to shake things up in the running order. It's all about the exit out of here, if we're being honest, for Abner Acosta. May actually have a little bit more downforce potentially than Yaquez, given this is an open setup series. But Yaquez a little bit wide, Acosta in the draft, and now hoping that he gets a chance into the hairpin.
Despite the board, no DRS for these GT3 cars. This is not the DTM, so no DRS on those rear wings. Acosta still there, still looking, but it may look a little bit compressed in this shot, but Acosta still about a car length behind Yaquez. You need to be alongside. You at least need to have a nose alongside the car in front to go for an attempt into the hairpin, and Acosta just didn't have it that time, but he's going to get one more shot into the hairpin the next time around.
One more chance, and probably not a desperate lunge. Acosta's not going to go for that one. You'd have to wager. Neither will Vincent Trepanier on his teammate Simon Theriault. As we were saying, probably quite comfortable for them to stay as they are, but 4.5 seconds off of your race leader. Here comes that blue colored SimCity Racing car. No issues about how many laps we're doing here in this one. It's going to be 25 full laps for your race leader as Dalton Zavadil comes across the line, white flag in hand. One more lap to go for what has been an almost perfect victory.
Enjoy your victory lap, Dalton, but make sure you don't get complacent. How many times have we seen that where a driver with a very comfortable lead gets a little bit complacent, says, you know what, I'm comfortable, I'm going to win this race, I'm going to take my focus off the road a little bit, and then it all goes wrong. But I don't think Mr. Z is going to end up doing that. Theriault, he's just got to hold off his teammate one more time. Through turn 2 it was clean, through turn 3 it was clean, through turn 4 now it's clean. I think he's going to be safe as well, assuming he does what he did for the last 30 minutes or so again.
Here comes the Seabauer Racing car. We saw a big block, a big defensive line being taken. Is he going to feel the need to be that defensive, given that Acosta's not that close this time by? In towards the hairpin. Last opportunity for a lunge, and yeah, no real chance to go for it. It would have to be a real desperation send. After this, of course, drivers will focus on Daytona this weekend. We wish all of them the best of luck in the iRacing Daytona 24 as Corollo drops down to 13th in these closing stages. Charlotte next, and then the halfway point of the season at Suzuka. Let's not forget, Joey, this is a 9-round championship as compared to the 10 rounds that we've had before.
Oh, Abner Acosta loops it around in the Mercedes arena. That's unfortunate, and Mendonca's going to pounce. He might get by Abner and knock him out of the top 6.
Well, it's a cruel end to the race, that's for sure. Jimmy Libra is going to jump in front of Boris Ovando on the final lap as well. But out front and continuing the domination of SimCity Racing, It's Dalton Zavadil on top once more. SimCity Racing grabbed the victory once again, but Advanced Motorsports second and third will be thrilled with the result. Brandon Tabone fourth, and then the wait for the rest of the drivers to get to the line. Abner Acosta does indeed get back in front of David Mendoza, though, to hold on to 7th spot.
He was lucky that he spun in such a place where he ended up on the inside of the next corner, because if he waited for even another second, he would have been down in P7 there. Big shout out goes out to the Bassmaster, up 9 spots from his starting position. P8 in that Ford. He is always doing big things in that car.
Who had the biggest movement through the field? Well, Ethan Bass, 9 positions gained for him. I think that makes him the biggest mover. Biggest loser, unfortunately, Chris Beats, championship leader, that finds himself dropping down what ultimately ended up being close to 11 positions. That's a very close look as the celebrations go on. Some donuts being attempted. Zavadil, Terrio, Trepigny, and now the rest of the field joining as well. This is the great thing about the PRL. Everyone's a community, and now we're playing a bit of bumper cars to end things off.
How adorable. It's like seeing cars interacting in the wild. It's good stuff. Spare thought for Adrian Kukulis, by the way. I believe he fell out of P11 on the final lap, made some contact with somebody, and a thought for Kwoknin as well. It was looking so good for him. He was in the top 10. It was looking like Hockenheim, and then it all went wrong in the pits.
You've been holding that one in for quite a while, weren't you?
I had to do it because I couldn't do it after he got that penalty. He scuppered his chances of it being Hockenheim, but next time.
We'll grab a look at the race results. We'll talk to the drivers. We'll wrap things up. It's a sea of Porsches up front as Zavadil leads from Terrio, Trepigny, Tabone, Yaquez, and Acosta. And then Mendoza, Bass, Hendricks, and Genet making up the rest of the top 10. And ultimately, what a fascinating top 10 battle that some of these drivers ended up having on their way to the end of the race. Jimmy Libra down in 11th with Boris Evando behind, and then Gary Brown, Kevin Simpson, Martin Crisp, and Chris Beats the rest of the top 16. Some of those, of course, being major championship rivals, and protagonists getting mixed up on the opening lap. Behind, Keeley, Kukulis, Fonseca, and Littleton round out the top 20 with Kwoknin, Carlos Okono, and then Marc-Andre Desjardins, Dimitri Sosno, and JP Alfonso. All cars finishing, albeit all but one, also on the leading lap. Fastest lap, maybe no surprise, going the way of the pole position man of the race winner, Dalton Zavadil, who now is standing by with Joey Tebben, a winner again in the PRL.
Mr. Z, it's been about a season since that last win at Laguna Seca, but it's finally come here. You and Hockenheim just absolutely clicked today.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm pretty surprised I didn't have a whole ton of practice. This is one of my better tracks, to be fair, and so I did go into this kind of expecting to be kind of high up, but I didn't expect to have, you know, a pretty decent gap at all. So we did really good today, clearly, and really excited about that performance.
So I believe with Vincent finishing third and Chris finishing down in the order, I don't know how the drop weeks are going to go, but theoretically you might be in the championship lead after today. How much confidence does that give you going into next week at the Roval, which could be pretty crazy?
That gives me a lot of confidence. I do like the Roval as well, but my favorite track remaining is definitely Bathurst. I'm definitely very excited for that track, and I think I can put up a real big fight there. So we'll just keep clicking away, keep doing our best as a team, and you know, really hope to win that championship.
Well, Mr. Z, congrats on win number 2 in the PRL, and we'll see you back in the US virtually next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Thank you to all of the SCR sponsors as well, and everybody that's out there supporting me and the team. Thank you.
Whole SimCity Racing community cheering on Dalton Zavadil. We've got Vincent Trepigny here, though, as well. Third place for you, Vincent. You were seeing a lot of your teammate Simon Theriault, though. You were stuck behind him. How frustrating was that?
No, it wasn't frustrated. I'm very happy for my teammates. Ontario, he's got the pace, but tonight is not a good night for me because I have a lot of connection for the internet. Connection for the internet tonight. So yeah, I have not a lot of practice just before the race, but yeah, I'm happy with for Ontario and happy too. And a good job to Mr. Easy for the win.
There you go. But the real question is, when is Simon going to come here for an interview? We haven't spoken to him yet.
He's scared to speak in English with you guys. He's very scared about it. Yeah.
I bet he'll be fine.
Yeah, I know. I asked him to come in interview, but he's very scared.
Or if all else fails, you know what we could do next week? We could have you be the French to English translator, and then we can have a whole Advanced Motorsports party.
I can try. Maybe I can try.
We'll get that worked out for next week. But until then, Vincent, congrats on both Advanced Motorsports cars on the podium, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys. Thank you to Advanced Motorsport, Advanced Racing. Thank you, guys, for the broadcast. PRL too.
Vincent Trepanier coming home P3, and you heard that, Arjuna. Mr. Z is catching on.
Starting to catch on indeed, but we can look on forward because it's going to be quite wild, going to be quite crazy when we make our way on over to the Roval. You're not going to be here, Joey. Have you decided that's just too crazy for you? Or are you thinking that Suzuka's maybe a better fit for the GT3 cars?
This was a deliberate choice. I'm deliberately slighting the members of the PRL GT3 community by not being here next week. But you should have stuck with that, Arjuna. You said we're gonna hop on oval to the Roval. You should have stuck with that. You shouldn't have corrected yourself.
I didn't even realize that my accidental slip was quite punny.
Exactly. Sometimes mistakes are the most beautiful flowers.
Well, and of course, that leads us to a brief discussion of the rest of the schedule. Mugello, Road Atlanta, Okayama, and Mount Panorama to come after the halfway point at Suzuka. It's a pretty compact schedule, 9 weeks. It sees us just go across 2 full months.
Yeah, it's almost like the people who designed the F1 calendar designed this for the amount of travel, because you're going from the US to Japan to Italy to the US, back to Japan, finishing in Australia. You're gonna get some frequent flyer miles there.
That you will indeed. And well, we're looking forward to going next week at the Roval, but for now it's time to say goodbye. Looking forward, of course, to seeing the drivers of the Precision Racing League and the Precision Racing Esports outfits out in force for the iRacing Daytona 24, powered by VCO. But next week, over at the Roval, it's sure to excite, it's sure to delight. On behalf of the team at RaceSpotTV, for Joey Tabone alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you so much for your company. We'll see you next week. For now, so long and goodbye.